Europe tells its people to prepare for war. The article goes, European security officials now regularly broadcast a message nearly unimaginable a decade ago: get ready for war with Russia. Rarely a week goes by now without a European government, military or security chief making a grim speech warning the public that they are heading toward a potential war with Russia. It is a profound psychological shift. And here's the most recent out of Russia itself. This was the Hungarian foreign minister, Peter Szartato, who claimed that Europe was preparing for a war against Russia. Now, this is the Hungarian security chief. And then Putin responds by saying, and I quote, if Europe suddenly wants to start a war with us and starts it, then it would end so swiftly for Europe that Russia would have no one left to negotiate with. And then Putin is followed on Russian television by Vladimir Solovyov, who is one of Russia's leading kind of, you know, what would you call it, Glenn Beck of Russia, or the Sean Hannity of Russia, who says, and I quote, once again, we will have to destroy Berlin and enter this godforsaken city. Once again, we will have to enter Paris. Once again, we will have to liberate Vienna. Well, perhaps the Austrians will reconsider. It doesn't mean that we want this, but one of the principles postulated by our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, that's Putin, is that when we are forced to act, then we will act. When he gave this speech, he was holding a Russian flag and he was dressed in camo, in army fatigues. Meanwhile, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, I've met this guy. He's quite a presence. He's very tall, very big guy. The deep voice, speaks perfect English. He says it's good that Donald Trump, that the White House understands Kremlin's demands for peace. He also said that Donald Trump has promised Lavrov, promised Putin, promised Russia that Ukraine is going to give up territory as part of a peace settlement. He said the Trump administration understands that, quote, territories where Russians have lived for centuries should once again become part of Russia. He was specifically referring to Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Crimea. And then Trump announced to Kyiv, to Zelensky, you must accept my platinum offer of security guarantees in exchange for ceding territory to Russia. In other words, you must do what Putin wants and give them the Donbass region and Donetsk and Luhansk, which, by the way, the Russians don't currently control. Moscow is also insisting that Ukraine be banned from joining NATO. And Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said the U.S. understands this. Trump understands this. They're in agreement. And so Zelensky a couple of days ago came out and said, okay, we'll give up our appeal to NATO. But we want something just as firm. We want some sort of an ironclad security agreement. And Trump is like, well, Meanwhile, the video of this murder in the Caribbean that Trump and Hegseth, apparently this was Hegseth's command, you know, the kill them all command. Apparently he didn't say explicitly kill them all, but what he said was the equivalent of that. This is Operation Southern Spear. We've killed 95 human beings so far. None of them arrested, none of them given a trial, none of them given due process, none of them actually in combat against the United States. There is no legal excuse for these murders, for these killings, which are murders. And now Hegseth is saying, and I'm not going to show you the video. Not going to show you. Instead, Trump says he's building up the largest armada. Armada is an old Spanish word. The largest armada ever seen in South America. Are you ready to go to war with Venezuela? As Putin prepares to go to war with Europe and China prepares to go to war with Taiwan? This is what Trump and the GOP have brought us. It's nuts.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I mean, we will find out tonight what's going on, but this complete blockade of all oil tankers out of Venezuela, that's an act of war. There's no other way to describe it. Your call.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Common Sense for the 21st Century by Roger Hallam. The subtitle, Only Nonviolent Rebellion Can Now Stop Climate Breakdown and Social Collapse. This is from the foreword. I was there for the past 20 years. Climate activism. It didn't work. We protested in our hundreds of millions. It didn't work. We raised billions to reach people and politicians. It didn't work. We signed countless online petitions. They didn't work. We looked to the United Nations to resolve the crisis. It didn't work. We trusted progressive politicians and their reforms. That didn't work. Al Gore had a big concert and a PR campaign. It didn't work. Countless NGOs, non-governmental organizations, did their best, and it didn't work. I worked with green NGO campaigns, champagne environmentalists, and lying politicians. I was wasting my time. I had a clue back in 2007 that there might be a fundamental flaw with the reformist approach. The problem with the political influence of the industrial billionaires like the Koch brothers and other fossil fuel bosses. It was another warm night in Los Angeles. I was invited to an exclusive event. A Tesla Roadster prototype was going to be shown to press and guests. We took turns riding around the block. I watched in amazement as the Tesla was at the end of the street in the blink of an eye, with barely a sound. I felt like a caveman seeing a television. Incredible. While I was working on a campaign in 2007, I had an idea for how to save the world with a massive music event and a huge fundraising effort led by celebrities to fund the biggest PR campaign to save the environment. It would be a huge global event, just like Live Aid. I sought out a prominent journalist at the Tesla event to tell about my scheme and bask in the glory of his praise. The journalist was Vijay Vithswaram from The Economist, now a life member of this Council on Foreign Relations. After listening carefully to my concept, he smiled and laughed. I was stunned. Laughter? How could I be so wrong? Vijay wasn't being cruel or unkind. He thought I was naive. He said, the fossil fuel industry has enough money to outspend any public relations campaign you might try by 100 times. He carried on talking, but I had stopped listening. I had my answer. He was right. Crestfallen, I sheepishly nodded and walked away. Over the next 12 years, I watched as fossil fuel companies used their vast financial capital to buy political parties, trick NGOs into fruitless schemes like the U.S. Cap-and-Trade Initiative, sow doubt about climate science in the public discourse, and slow policy reform to a snail's pace. Their strategy worked. As climate skepticism continued to spread, climate change mitigation dropped down voters' priorities. With Trump and Putin in power, it was over. I quit climate campaigning. Then I heard about Extinction Rebellion closing 5 bridges in London. Then they closed central London in April 2019. This was something different. I met Roger Hallam, and he explained his ideas for a radical plan to create real change. This included, first, tell the truth. Climate skepticism was pushed by the mainstream media, which spread doubt on climate science like a plague, leaving inaction in its wake. The scale of the crisis is being played down, and we must get the truth out. Second, nonviolent civil disobedience. We need to get arrested, tens of thousands of us, more. No more protests, no more petitions. Instead, nonviolent civil disobedience, lots of it, and on a large scale. Close down cities until the politicians take action, or until the people do. Third, universalism. In other words, the ecological and climate crisis should not be owned by any political ideology, culture, age, or gender. As Roger Hallam says, we all have a stake in the future. We should all be allowed to engage in action. I was convinced. We need a new approach to save ourselves and the planet. We need to spark a worldwide rebellion. We need some common sense for the 21st century. That foreword was written by, quote, anonymous climate activist. So this now is the introduction to the book. It is time to grow up and see the world as it is. There are some things which are undeniably real. There are some things we cannot change, and one of those is the law of physics. Ice melts when the temperature increases. Crops die in a drought. Trees burn in forest fires. Because these things are real, we can also be certain about what the future holds. We are now heading into a period of extreme ecological collapse. Whether or not this leads to the extinction of the human species largely depends on whether revolutionary changes happen within our societies within the next decade. This is not a matter of ideology, but of simple math and physics. The United Nations has estimated that we need to reduce carbon emissions by half within a decade to have a 50% chance of avoiding a global catastrophe. Of course, this is likely to be an underestimate, as recent science shows permafrost melting 90 years earlier than forecasted and Himalayan glaciers melting twice as fast as expected. The book, Common Sense for the 21st Century, by Roger Hallam, the co-founder of the Extinction Rebellion. The subtitle, Only Nonviolent Rebellion Can Now Stop Climate Breakdown and Social Collapse.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Thursday to you. Why has ICE turned Minneapolis into a battlefield? Donald Trump is now getting close to what he's been egging for all along. I keep telling you this. I've been pointing this out for weeks now. Donald Trump wants to invoke the Insurrection Act, but first he has to have an insurrection. He has to have somebody fighting back. And that's what he's trying to provoke in Minneapolis. And last night appears he came close to it. And now he's threatening it. We'll get into that in just a moment. Also, the ICE siege in Minneapolis continues. Another ICE shooting. An ICE rammed a special education teacher, then arrested her after they rammed her car, and then held her for 12 hours, terrified. This is a special ed teacher at a special ed school. And the impeachment effort for Kristi Noem picks up steam with my U.S. Member of the House of Representatives, Maxine Dexter, introducing legislation to impeach Noem. We'll talk about that in the first hour of the program. In the second hour, our first guest for the day, Phil Ittner, is going to drop by with a live report from Ukraine. Things are getting really grim there. Russia is just pummeling that country. Also, did a billionaire with interests in Greenland convince Trump to acquire it? Is this, once again, Trump helping out his billionaire buddies? Also, NATO is showing up to protect Greenland from us. And something big is up with our economy, and they're trying to keep it quiet. Why is the Fed giving hundreds of billions of dollars to New York banks? Last time we did this was in 2008 when Bush crashed the economy. Remember that? In the third hour of our program, our second guest for the day, Sabrina Haake, is going to drop by, a former federal prosecutor and attorney. ICE goons are not immune to accountability, she says. Let's learn about that. Also, the War Powers resolution that would have prevented Trump from putting American troops on the ground in Venezuela failed in the Senate. This is bizarre. Republicans are caving to Donald Trump. This was Hawley and... I forget the other one. But anyhow, there's two Republican senators who said, okay, Donald, we'll do whatever you want. Yes, sir, just bend over, I'll kiss your ass. And finally, in the third hour of the program, Geeky Science. Want to cut your risk of death by 30%? with 5 minutes a day? I'll tell you about that in the third hour of the program. But to start out, the article that I published, my daily take over at HartmannReport.com today is titled, "Why Has ICE Turned Minneapolis into a Battlefield?" You know, yesterday, Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, took a Fox News host down. Basically, it was really a fascinating interview. The host was like, you know, aren't you concerned about all this stuff? And Frey was like, you know, aren't you concerned that these goons are running? Yeah, well, actually, Frey's response was, aren't you concerned that all of the people who are supposed to prosecute these crimes just quit their jobs? Which raises the question, what is ICE really doing in Minneapolis? Now, I just want to tell you this story. I told this story years ago when it was actually happening. This was at least a decade ago. This was when Bernie was a regular on our program. Which was back when he was in the House of Representatives. When he became a senator, he kind of got busy, and Mark Pocan and Ro Khanna have stepped in to take that role of, every week taking calls from our listeners. But a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine's daughter, who is very Anglo, a cute blonde, fell in love with a Hispanic guy. And he owned a local restaurant. This was in a northern Midwestern town. And they got married. And, a few months later, maybe a year later, she got pregnant. They now have, I think, 4 kids. And ICE, I'm not even sure it was ICE, but, federally, probably it was. This was during the Obama administration. Federal officers showed up and said, you are not a U.S. citizen, and you have... and I don't recall, frankly, the period of time. My recollection is it was a month. I may well be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But they gave him a certain amount of time and said, within this period of time, you have to leave the country. And, go back to Mexico and apply for your visa from there, even though you're married to an American citizen and you have American citizen kids. It was all very polite. It was done with paperwork. Here's the proof. The guys were wearing suits. They weren't, dressed out in camo. Nobody kicked in the front door of his house or her house. Nobody from the government was wearing a mask. There was no swearing, no threats, no shouting, no guns, no tear gas, no pepper spray. Nobody hit his car with theirs or beat either of them to the ground. They just said, you got to leave. Here's the paperwork. And, I mentioned Bernie Sanders because at that time, Bernie and I were talking every single week, and I told Bernie about this, and he got his constituent services guy in his office to reach out to the federal government and say, what's the deal here? And any chance you can get this guy, a little more time or help him work out his paperwork? And basically the feds said, no, he crossed the border illegally. He's not here with documentation. He's got to go back to Mexico and apply from there. So a couple of weeks later, my friend's daughter and her new husband and their first kid got on a plane and flew to Mexico, where they still are to this day. They're still living down there. We have been enforcing immigration laws since the 1920s. I believe it was 1924 that we passed the first, serious immigration law outside of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1886. And we never before needed masked goons with tear gas and pepper balls and batons beating people into insensibility and smashing people's car windows. We never needed that before. And it's not like we weren't effective at doing it. Syracuse University keeps track of this data. They noted that during Obama's 8 years in office, he deported 3.1 million people. His peak year, the peak year for Obama deportations, he deported 407,000 people in 1 year. Now, in Trump's entire first 4 years, he only deported 932,000 people. And his peak for any 1 year was 269,000. So in his best year, Donald Trump is only deporting 2/3 as many people as Obama did. Now, that was during his first term. But what about this term? I mean, we're fully 1 year into it right now, and so far ICE has reported 290,000 removals from the time Trump came into office until last month. 290,000. Keep in mind, Obama's best year was 407,000, and Obama did not use armed thugs. This, Trump is not deporting as many people as Obama did. In other words, this is not about deportations. ICE's violence today is not primarily about enforcing our immigration laws. Instead, it's about terrorizing us. That's the key point. I mean, that's the important point to remember. You got Stephen Miller saying, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else, but we live in a real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that's governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world since the beginning of time. I mean, John Adams called us a nation of laws, not men. Supreme Court building says equal justice under law. I mean, our founding document says that our government derives their just power from the consent of the governed. That's the opposite of what's going on in Minneapolis right now. This is Putinism. And that's why Noem and Bondi are refusing to investigate Renee Good's murder, and why instead they want to investigate her wife. This is our federal government, much like Putin's government in Russia, saying, if you stand up to us, we will not only kill you, we will come after your family when you're dead. I mean, this is pure Putin. It's pure Erdogan, pure Orban, pure Xi. And then yesterday, doubling down on this, the Reichsminister for Propaganda, Stephen Miller, said, reminder to all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from filling your leave, which is a lie. They don't have immunity. But that's the message that he wants. He wants to say, you are our agents of terror. Get out there and terrorize people. That kind of threat doesn't belong in a democratic republic. It just absolutely does not. And it tells us exactly what this administration believes power is for. It's to suppress the people, to terrorize the people, and to prepare for the 2026 election, where I think they're going to be snatching ballots like Donald Trump complained last week that he should have done in 2020. He should have just seized the ballots from blue cities.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is nothing more or less than state-sponsored terrorism, and it's damn well high time that it stop. And welcome back, Brian in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Yeah, well, lots of things, but Denmark I'm calling about, or Greenland. Everything that Trump does is a grift. Let's start from there. I have no doubt that he, he, due to his patron, Vlad, and, just his own moneyed interest, does want to take Greenland, but he may or may not. We'll see.
Well, it turns out, and I'm gonna get into this in the second hour of the program after Phil Ittner is on. Turns out there's a billionaire buddy of Donald Trump's, Mr. Lauder, the heir to the Lauder makeup fortune, who has invested mind-boggling amounts of money in Greenland, and wants to see his investment repaid. And he's been shoveling millions of dollars at Trump and showing up at Trump's events.
Right. So due to his own grift, money from this or Vlad or whatever, I have no doubt he wants to, but he might not. He might get talked out of it or whatever. He might be distracted with something else. And if and when he does not, watch for him and his team to play us all and pivot and say, this was the 4D chess we were playing all along. We've been screaming for NATO to up their defense and, pay more of their share for years. And now NATO is doing more exercises, putting more money in it, moving troops around. And they will say, that's a lie, but they will say, we planned this. Look, Donald Trump was victorious. And why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because it matters because I think that a reasonable amount of Americans going into the election will fall for that. They will be like, Donald Trump is strong. He's brilliant. And so I think we need to be prepared for that eventuality if and when he does not invade Greenland, which I put at a 50-50 at this point. Yeah. He will claim victory. He will say he planned this all along and how amazing he is. It's a lie. Yeah. Let's prepare for that.
Good point. Good point. Excellent point, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for making that. Steve in Phoenix. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Morning, Tom. Wish you well here, and nice to have you back from your holiday.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, what does the declaration of war on a country look like? And I'll tell you what I think it looks like. What it looks like to me is, it looks like when you take health care away from people and let them just flail on their own. That's one of the things. It also looks like when you close and shut a bunch of Social Security offices and get rid of the workers and stuff. It looks like when you start invading with government troops into cities like L.A., Chicago, Minneapolis. And then also it looks like when you start shooting at our citizens. That's what I think it looks like. Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing. There's a guy in Moscow who's loving it right now. That's my...
Oh, absolutely. Putin wants Trump to take Venezuela or Greenland because that will justify Putin taking Ukraine. It'll legitimize it. I mean, you know, it's and frankly, I mean, this whole thing of you know, Trump trying to destroy America and using the Insurrection Act and stuff like that. I'm guessing Putin's behind that too.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's essentially what Putin did after the Chechens. You know, when the Chechens took that theater in Moscow back in the day. That was the moment. You know, that was when Putin decided, okay, that's it. You know, democracy is over. We're going to have a dictatorship here. And he did it with the Russian version of the Insurrection Act. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Well said. Spot on. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. A lot of people wonder, where did this whole right-wing movement to basically gut our freedoms and end DEI and all this other, where did this all begin? It all started back with a book called The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot by Russell Kirk. And he argued that if the middle class ever got too big, you'd see young people and women and racial minorities all get up on their hind feet and start protesting and basically screwing up America. And in the 50s, you know, even Republicans thought he was nuts. But then the 60s happened and all those protests, and suddenly Republicans thought, yeah, he's right. We've got to destroy the middle class, or at least cut it back. And that was Reagan's mandate when he came into office in 1981. There's a whole article about this. You can read all the details. It's titled The GOP's 60-Year Conspiracy to Kill Our Democracy. None dare call it treason, but I will. Over at HartmanReport.com. Check it out.
They say it's paperwork and process, just names and files, just rules applied. But the engine's idle in the daylight and the faces hide behind what's implied. No warrant waved, no questions answered, just hands on guns and orders barked. If this is law, then why the silence? Why the masks? Why leave the dark? So tell me, what is ICE really doing? Who is this meant to scare tonight? If it's just a law, why all the fear? If it's just justice, why the sight of doors kicked in and voices shaking? Of cities told to look away. What is ICE really doing, and who decides who's safe to stay? We've We've seen the laws enforced before now, with forms and courts and measured tone. No armies needed, no theater stage, no lessons taught with blood and bone. They point and say that's not for you, say you're fine, you're on the right side. But power never stops with one group, it just looks for the next place to hide. So tell me, what is ICE really doing? Is this about the border or control? When fear becomes the chosen language, what happens to the human soul? If force is all they need to govern, if masks replace the rule of law, what is ICE really doing, and who are they coming for? This isn't theory, this isn't later, this isn't someone else's fight. History doesn't knock politely, it shows up dressed as keeping order and asks who's willing to look straight at it. While there's still time to call it out.
24 minutes past the hour. So last night, overnight, federal agents clashed with protesters, where a federal agent has shot a man, a Venezuelan man who they were trying to detain. They're claiming that he attacked them. God only knows. We've had ICE and Kristi Noem lie to us, just nakedly lie right to our faces so many times. It is increasingly impossible to say what's going on. Tricia McLaughlin, the DHS spokeswoman, basically claiming that this guy was, a violent criminal. She said, two people came out of a nearby, this is what she said. She said, he began to resist and violently assault the officer. She said, two people came out of a nearby building and, along with the man being sought, attacked the officer with a snow shovel and a broom handle. The officer feared for his life and fired shots, striking the man whom agents were seeking. And then the news report says, the federal government's narrative could not immediately be verified. Gee, you think? This was in the 600 block of 24th Avenue North. Neighbors said they saw federal agents ordering people inside the house to come out with their hands up, and that several people, including children, walked out. Mayor Jacob Fry says this is not sustainable. He reiterated his call for ICE to leave the city. He said this is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in, and at the same time we're trying to find a way forward to keep people safe, to protect our neighbors, to maintain order. About 200 protesters showed up. They were yelling at Minneapolis cops, telling them that the federal agents should be arrested, begging them to arrest these ICE agents. And then several heavily armed Border Patrol agents arrived in a large military-style vehicle outside the crime scene tape. Here we are, it's Fallujah. Protesters swarmed the vehicle and yelled and threw snowballs. A few minutes later, at least two ICE agents arrived in an unmarked SUV and sprayed chemical agents in the faces of the protesters, causing one to say he couldn't see. A Minneapolis officer, supervisor, said he didn't know what happened. He says, it's not like they're talking to us. 3,000 federal agents in Minneapolis right now. Todd Blanche calls this the Minnesota insurrection in a social media post. I'm telling you, Trump wants to invoke the Insurrection Act so bad he can taste it, because it gives him almost dictatorial powers. This is a real problem.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
27 minutes past the hour. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls right after this.
We say
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich by me. I wrote this book. This is from the introduction, the title, How a Single-Payer Healthcare Systems Help Stop COVID-19. Healthcare systems can be national security systems. Just ask anyone from Taiwan. From January 20th, 2020, the United States, or on January 20, 2020, the United States recorded its first known case of COVID-19 infection. The following day, Taiwan got their first one too. By the end of April, over 1 million Americans were infected with the virus. But Taiwan had recorded only 388 infections, and their last case of local transmission was on April 12th. A few had arrived on aircraft from other countries. All were contained by quarantine. As of this writing in September 2020, there hadn't been a single new case or a single death in Taiwan since April. The economy never shut down and, as of this writing, was projected to have grown nearly 2% in 2020. Business, restaurants, theaters, and sports events were all open. Life was back to normal, albeit a mask-wearing normal. And it was made possible by their national single-payer healthcare system and their citizens' willingness to do their bit for the collective good. Back in the 1980s, Taiwan was on the edge of moving toward a democracy after a military coup in the 1960s. And about 40% of Taiwanese families did not have health insurance. If somebody in a family got sick, the cost of care often wiped out that family, and demands for reform were loud across the nation. Yue Reinhardt was a German-born healthcare economist married to a Taiwanese woman, and he attended a conference on healthcare in Taipei in 1989. His presentation impressed representatives of the government in attendance, and while he was still in town for the conference, they asked him for his best suggestion for a national healthcare system. He and his wife went back to their hotel and discussed the issue in depth, finally deciding that a single-payer national system would be the most cost-effective, efficient, and comprehensive program possible. He shared his thoughts with the government representatives, and the next day he left Taiwan to go back to Princeton, where he was an economic professor. 6 months later, though, a representative of Taiwan's government called him to say that they were going to take up his suggestion and asked him to help craft their healthcare program. He enthusiastically agreed, and by 1995, Taiwan had instituted one of the world's best single-payer healthcare systems. Today, everybody in Taiwan is fully covered for doctor and hospital services. Everybody has a driver's license-like healthcare card, which accesses their entire medical history. They can book a doctor's appointment on any computer terminal in the country, and the entire cost of the system is a bit more than 6% of Taiwan's GDP. For comparison, in the United States, healthcare consumes 24% of our GDP. Because there is no insurance company intermediaries sucking profits off the system in Taiwan. When COVID-19 hit, Taiwan chose not to use the blunt force technique of shutting down their economy and locking people in. Instead, they took on the coronavirus with an aggressive nationwide test and contact trace program tied into the National Health Service database. Every infected person was identified and put into a comfortable quarantine, and every person he or she had come into contact with, even very marginal contacts, were also tested and their contacts traced. By April, just a bit more than 2 months after the first case surfaced, the country had the coronavirus isolated and completely under control. By quarantining inbound visitors to the nation island of 23 million, they were able, as of this writing, to keep it that way. Maintaining public health is one of the most important functions of any nation's healthcare system. Because America's is so fragmented, it's inconceivable that our nation could respond to an epidemic, a pandemic, or another public health disaster with the speed and elegance of Taiwan or any of the world's other nations with single-payer Medicare for all types of systems. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, a friend who's a psychotherapist said, describing the way that Americans have clung for more than 5 generations to a for-profit health insurance system, while the rest of the world figured out how to provide health care to all their citizens at a much lower price. People know it and have become familiar with it, she added. They just can't imagine anything else. It's probably the largest con job ever perpetrated on the American people, one that has cost trillions of dollars and millions of lives. It's been going on since the 1940s. If it were a scientific experiment, it would have been shut down by the ethics review panels generations ago. This experiment in providing health care via a for-profit insurance system has led to the deaths of more Americans than we lost in World War II. Every year, over 500,000 Americans go bankrupt, often losing everything they've worked their entire lives for because somebody in their family got sick. That's 500,000 families a year, every year, for the past few decades. And the coronavirus, of course, has only made things worse. Perhaps most galling, this massive ripoff is costing our entire nation and each of us individually a fortune. Insurance premiums right now make up 22% of all taxable payroll, well above what the cost of Medicare for all would be at around 14% when first put into place, dropping down to around 10% within a few years as previously uninsured people get their health needs up to date. As the health insurance, drug, and hospital parasites push their suckers deeper and deeper into our body politic, spending on health care by Americans went up 25% between 2000 and 2014. The book, The Hidden History of American Health Care, by Thom Hartmann.
Now the truth's been buried under shadows cold and sly. A party lost its compass to the needle of the lie. The GOP's addiction to the lie, selling poison to the people while the truth just walks on by. What once was conviction has withered and died. All that's left is the fire hose, the GOP's addiction to the lie.
35 minutes past the hour. Christina Rank she's a middle school teacher at Invergrove Heights. It's a school that serves students with special needs. She was apparently driving to work at 7:30 in the morning. She said in a video posted to Facebook, an ICE agent claims Rank rammed his vehicle, but at least two of her colleagues who actually witnessed the thing, who were there, said no, the ICE vehicle rammed her. And the damage is not on the front of her car, which would, the front of her car is completely unscathed. So she didn't ram anything. In fact, it's the passenger side of her car, where they hit her car with their car. And then they smashed her window to drag her out of the vehicle. This is a young woman who is a special ed teacher in Minneapolis, or in a suburb of Minneapolis. As of 3:30 day before yesterday, she was still in custody. She had no idea what was going on, according to her mother, who says she wanted to know why ICE agents were at school and why they used excess force on her daughter. She says, I was told I could not see her and was not able to talk to anyone there. The lack of visibility and accountability is awful. She's being treated like a criminal and for no reason. This school is one for students with special needs. Why were they there? Inquiring minds want to know. Also, this overnight thing, or this early morning, or whenever it was, I guess it was last night, because I caught it on TV around 10 o'clock last night. I couldn't sleep. And just again, Jacob Frey came out, the mayor of Minneapolis, and said, he's going to involve the state police, basically, the Criminal Investigation Bureau, I think it's called, or something like that. Meanwhile, my Congresswoman, Maxine Dexter from Portland, and Robin Kelly of Illinois, Congresswoman or man, I'm not sure, Robin Kelly of Illinois, filed 3 articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. The first is for withholding funds appropriated by Congress and denying members of Congress entrance to Homeland Security facilities. In other words, misuse of money. The second says that she has repeatedly violated the Immigration and Nationality Act, along with the First and Fourth Amendment, violating due process by directing ICE to carry out arrests without warrants and to use violence against U.S. citizens. And then the third article says that she misused her position for personal gain. She used $200 million in taxpayer money to fund an ad campaign that features her, and she bypassed the normal bidding process to award a contract to a firm run by the husband of one of her senior officials. Good on you, Maxine Dexter. Let's see more of this. So what's on your mind today? Don in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Hey, Don, what's up?
Hi, Tom. This would appear to be, as you've been saying, quite likely a crisis point where, they want to provoke or to themselves have provocateurs create an incident that then can be used to declare martial law.
Yeah.
And, you know,
through the Insurrection Act, absolutely.
Yeah,
and in
yeah.
fact, Trump was talking about it this morning, and Noem is talking about it now too. I mean, everybody.
Yeah, they're saying what they're going to do.
They're gung ho for it.
You know, as we've talked before, I was going to congratulate you on talking with Christopher Armitage. I know maybe I played some role in stimulating you to do that. The states have power. They have power, but you know that if there were organized elements in New York and California and Illinois and everything supporting Minneapolis, Minnesota, it would be a lot harder for them to send. They're sending all their terrorist troops to one place. They don't have limitless troops. They're having a hard time, even for $300,000 a year, they're having a hard time recruiting people.
You've got 3,000 ICE officers in Minneapolis right now. There's only 600 police officers in the entire Minneapolis Police Department. If you were the mayor, what would you do?
Well, you don't want to. They need to take some kind of stand and arrest somebody. You know, they're not all 3,000 in one place, and arrest somebody. If the next outrageous deal, arrest them.
Yeah.
Put them in jail, and move them around the way they used to move leftists around. You know, they're not at this jail anymore. They ain't got to move to this other jail.
Yeah.
And you know, this can be delayed. This can make a big, but that's illegal. You know, do it legally. I mean, we're constrained. Also, the people of Minneapolis. You know, that guy Johnson or John Ross. He lives in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Well, why isn't his house surrounded? You know, dox him. I mean, totally peaceful. Lots of noise. No, you know, 24
I think that's
hours a
happened,
day.
and he has left. He's left the area.
He's probably left
actually.
now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of doxing people. I don't. You know, you go after people legally. Let's not use mob justice here.
Well, yeah, but what? Well, I mean, how long have we got left?
Well,
I mean,
you know, I think the larger question, Don, is when Donald Trump imposes the Insurrection Act or invokes the Insurrection Act. And I say when because I believe he's going to do it. And frankly, I've been saying for a year now that I think he's going to do it in the fall so that he will have that power going up to the election so that he can seize the ballot boxes from blue cities in red states and nobody will do anything about it and it'll drive down the vote count. I think the end goal of all of this is for him and the Republicans to hang on to power. This is a Putin move. And but the question is, you know, what happens when the Insurrection Act gets invoked? In fact, that's probably the op-ed I should write for tomorrow is a detailed explainer of the Insurrection Act. Don, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. Very thought-provoking, as always. Thank you. Sarah in Minneapolis. Hey, Sarah. Just talking about your town.
Yeah. We're kind of in survival mode here. And I've gone back and forth with involvement with the National Guard or not, and there's been some debate about how that can be effective. And I still don't know the answer to that. But I tell you, I'm just a regular person, okay? And I've been catapulted in leaning into my uncomfortability about going out and doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my job has been to do active patrolling in my car. I'm quite sure that the feds now have all my information on me. I'm trying to be very, very safe. Just last week, actually the day that Renee was killed, I was on my Signal group when it started to emerge what was happening in South Minneapolis. So this was, you know, that morning. Mm-hmm. And I was going to be going out to this large parking lot by a strip mall that's Target in one end and Home Depot on the other, because ICE had been staging there. It had been going there and staging their operations. And then, so my job was, and with like 4 other people, was to find the ICE vehicles, because we have a really intricate system and a dispatcher, and basically find them in the parking lot, follow them, honk horns, and then as soon as they would leave, we would not engage with them, and basically trying to disrupt what they're doing, disrupt. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not used to doing this kind of stuff, you know, and it's very frightening. And also what's happening in the hospital system here, too. The hospital I used to work at, we've got ICE agents completely just disregarding warrants, disrupting patient care. I mean, it's absolutely awful. And the security can't get them out. They even brought the state senators in and the uppers of the hospital. They could not get ICE to leave. The sheriff's department could not get ICE to leave. They had it's such an untenable situation here because we can't get them to leave places they are not.
Did the hospital want them to
in.
leave? I mean, that's private property. They could have had them arrested for trespass.
The
or maybe not. I don't know.
So,
federal authority.
So what happened was the staff and the physician stepped in and said, "You guys need to leave." And then security told them, "You need to leave. You can't be here. You don't have the judicial warrants. You can't be here." They refused to leave. They brought the uppers of the hospital to the hospital. This was in the evening after regular work hours. They would not leave. They brought in the county commissioner's representation. They still wouldn't leave. They brought in the state senators, the sheriff's department. They would not leave, and Minneapolis Police Department would not get involved.
Wow.
Because everybody's afraid, and the security people are like...
Which hospital is this, and why was ICE there in the first place?
Okay, this is a big charitable hospital called Hennepin County Medical Center in downtown Minneapolis. It's a level 1 trauma, so all the violent injuries and illnesses go there, and a large immigrant population gets their care there. And they've also been stationing themselves outside of the hospital, so when the patients are discharged and they step off of hospital property, they just pick them up.
Wow.
They get them. Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's so untenable right now. And my colleagues who work there are just, and it's still ongoing because it's still a big problem.
Yeah, they have to be horrified. Amazing.
So anyway, go ahead.
No, I've got to run, sir. We're out of time here. But thank you for the call, and thanks for informing us about what's going on in that hospital in Minneapolis. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
It is in some articles, and the Star Tribune covered it also a couple of days ago.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
46 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. And welcome back, Larry in Coos Bay, Oregon. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Greetings from a beautiful, chilly, sunny day on the southwest Oregon coast.
Oh, cool.
I think Trump is brilliant, and that's where I'm starting from, because it's not what we're talking about; it's what we're not talking about. And all this is because he doesn't want the Epstein files to be released.
Yeah.
This is.
Well, he's now saying they're not going to come out until after he leaves office. 3 more years.
Yeah, well, again, I was watching Stephen Colbert yesterday, and he showed that clip of the protester or the guy at the Ford plant yelling "pedophile protector," and then he riffed on it. And
that guy, by the way, I kicked in $25 to his GoFundMe site yesterday. What's his name? TJ something. And they've raised like $400,000 for him. I mean, this is great. It's like, hopefully that'll encourage other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, good on him. But in the meantime, I think what we got to try to do is just keep talking up about the Epstein files, because he's not going to release them. And we know that he's the pedophile protector, and he's protecting all his donors that probably are involved with this. And the sooner we can get that into the mainstream news media, we're not going to see anything. I watched a little bit of Fox News yesterday. I felt like I was going to barf.
Oh yeah, it's so bizarre watching Fox. It's like I used to listen to Radio Moscow when I was a kid, on shortwave, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, really, are you trying to sell me this, really? But the people who watch Fox, they buy it. I mean, it's all they know. So it's a real tragedy. Larry, thanks for the call, and thanks for sharing that. Dave in Venice, California. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Good morning from an unseasonably warm Los Angeles.
Oh, sweet.
I think this portends things to come with this global warming thing.
Yeah.
Tom, I park on a street where Arnold Schwarzenegger goes by just about every morning after his workout at the gym. And yesterday I did yell at him, "Are you going to say something, Governor?" And it's not, I didn't mean it disrespectfully, but he was going by on his bike, and I just wanted to make sure that he heard me. And he did. He looked back and he waved at me. And then what I wanted to share with you today is my own crazy theory, and I can be debunked, and I won't take it personally. The water is what Trump is after in Greenland to cool the AI things that they're going to put there. And they want that water. I believe he did mention by name water. I know they want all the rare earth minerals and things.
Well, this Estee Lauder guy, Ronald Lauder, the billionaire who apparently has been trying to get Trump all cranked up on this, the franchise that he owns, one of the businesses that he owns in Greenland is a bottled water company that is bottling million-year-old Icelandic glacial water and selling it to rich people at absurdly high prices. So,
I understand that it is one of the last greatest sources of fresh water on the planet. So that is strategic.
True. It's
and
true.
I believe that they're going to put those AI things there.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, they would have.
And they're going to, because they're getting so much pushback from the municipal people for the.
Yeah. No, they would have hydropower to power them, and they'd have cold water to cool them. Yeah. Excellent point, Dave. Thank you. Thank you. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
So what do we call the really
it's a new year, colder day.
Rich? You know, at the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, you know, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, you know, like tech is positive and bros, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
They said it was permanent. They said it was sacred. But here we are.
Lights on, chest open.
Welcome back. 52 minutes past the hour. John Parker is on the line with us. He is a reporter with KTNF. He's the breaking news anchor for AM 950 KTNF in Minneapolis, the station that carries our program every day and has for years and years and years. He hosts the Gailey Show, which is the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the U.S., airing on AM 950 and WCPT 820. John, welcome back to the program. Thank you for being our guy on the ground in Minneapolis. What's the latest?
Thanks, Tom, for having me. So just in the last half hour, DHS officials have named the person the ICE agents were attempting to arrest last night. His name is Julio Cesar Sosa Solis. They are claiming that he is from Venezuela. They tried to do a traffic stop, and I'm sure you know all the details of this far, but they're also claiming, oh, okay. So it started as an attempt to arrest him in his vehicle, but he fled from the ICE agents and then crashed into a parked vehicle and then ran from them. As he was as we understand it, was trying to get to his home, his apartment. As he was getting there, ICE agents tackled him. A struggle ensued. Apparently 2 neighbors or family members, it's still kind of conflicting accounts of which, came out to support Sosa Celis. They brought with them a broom handle and a snow shovel. In that struggle, that's when the ICE agent fired his weapon, striking Sosa Celis in his leg. Apparently, both the agent and Sosa Celis are still in the hospital, but with non-life-threatening injuries. It's interesting, folks go to the Facebook page of Minnesota State Senator Erin May Quaid. She has posted videos of family members in the apartment who are on the phone with 911, calling them, asking for support and what to do as the ICE agents are surrounding the building. And it was really striking to me last night in the press conference about 10:30 when Mayor Jacob Frey said, you know, there's been such a huge spike of calls to 911 about how asking for the police to protect them from ICE. He said, you know, there's only 600 police officers in Minneapolis, and there's 3,000 ICE agents prowling around the Twin Cities. So, I mean, he characterized it as an unsustainable situation. But there are about 200 protesters that showed up last night. And there's a story that I just want to share with your listeners because it's not getting enough traffic in the local media, or at least the national media. And that's a father who lived in the neighborhood, the Hawthorne neighborhood, and he saw what was going on, and he said, I want to get out of here. He put his kids into his car, including a 6-month-old, and they were trying to leave the area, which is what folks were saying, leave, don't stay there. And he told an officer, you know, I'm leaving, and they still attacked his vehicle with flashbangs, and they had to take the kids, including the 6-month-old, to the hospital because they couldn't breathe.
Whoa.
So that's the level of, and I'm sure your listeners know, you know, they tell us to comply. They tell people to comply, and still, even when they tell the officers we are complying, they still attacked the vehicle.
Oh, I saw the video yesterday of this guy on the ground saying, I'm not resisting, as they were pounding on him. Pardon the interruption.
Yeah. And we have reports of folks who are being held for 10 or 12 hours simply for exercising their constitutional right of videotaping them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a story in a local of a real estate agent who saw ICE activity and was filming them, and they pushed to the ground, put him in a chokehold, took him to the ICE detention center at Fort Snelling in St. Paul, and held him there for 10 hours before they let him go.
Amazing.
Without filing charges.
Yeah, no, this is not about removing immigrants from the United States. Obama removed more immigrants every year than Trump ever has. This is about terrorizing people, in my opinion. I mean, you're the reporter, I'm editorializing here, but it is so obvious to me that this is not about immigration enforcement. This is about terror. This is the Schutzstaffel. This is the SS here. Amazing. John Parker with KTNF, AM 950 in Minneapolis. John, thanks a lot for dropping by today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Good talking to you. I look forward to perhaps talking with you tomorrow. We will be back. We're hitting the top of the hour here. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Phil Ittner is going to be with us live from Ukraine on the other side of this break. Just stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Minority Leader, How to Lead from the Outside and Make Real Change by Stacey Abrams. This is from chapter 1, although the introduction is fascinating too, where she talks about, you know, Rhodes scholarships and stuff, but this is chapter 1. I sit in a living room, a cozy space, warm in the early summer. I'm perched on the edge of a sofa next to Valerie, the home's owner, a lovely black woman in her late 40s. Across from us, seated close together on a wide settee met for one, are her 2 children, a son and a daughter. Politicians rarely visit their streets, which are nestled in a poorer community in South Georgia. Valerie beams with pride that both her children are headed to college in the fall. David, 17, plans to study criminology. Maya, 18, her belly round with her first child, intends to become a middle school teacher. Both newly graduated from high school, Maya will give birth in mere weeks and begin college months later, an unwed teen mother. Her intended school is more than 3 hours north of her home, so her mother will raise her newborn baby while she starts her freshman year. Valerie speaks matter-of-factly about the coming challenge, raising a new child just as hers leaves the nest. Still, she is determined that both her children pursue college degrees that she never received. Maya, the mother-to-be, wonders how she'll do so far away from home and her baby. Yet in the next breath, she explains how college will be the best for her and her child. Their future success rests upon her. I've come to their home as part of my campaign for governor, so I asked Valerie what she expects of someone like me. What can I do to help make lives like hers better? In her soft voice, she replies, she just wants options for financial aid for her children. They will succeed, she says, if they can afford to stay in school. As I look around the modest home passed down through the generations, I understand both the pride and the desperation tangled in her response. She got them through and has given them the tools to carve out better lives for themselves. We chat more about the worries she has lived with all those years, our discussion turning to the crime and poverty in their neighborhood. Then I ask Valerie what she wants. At first, all I get in response is a quizzical look to suggest I need to reconsider my bid for higher office. Or that suggests. I repeat, what do you want for you? What secret dream do you have for yourself? Her confused expression turns to one of surprise. I don't know, she tells me. I've been a cashier at the Piggly Wiggly for 20 years. You must want something, I probe, something you'd like to do for you? A daycare, she admits quietly. I'd like to start a daycare center for unwed mothers like my daughter, so more girls can finish school and pursue their dreams. But that ambition is beyond her. Her body language, her tone of voice, her averted gaze speak louder than her words. I press her, but she demurs with a smile. Let's just see what happens if you win the governor's job, she says. Valerie's house in South Georgia is not too different from the squat red brick house where I grew up on South Street in Gulfport, Mississippi. An oak tree grew out in our front yard, shadowing the front sidewalk, forbidding grass to grow beneath its shade. Pink azaleas bloomed each spring from bushes that flanked the front door. Our rented house and the others set close by teemed with children, all black, all working class. We played in our postage-stamped yards, make believing the fantastical, superhero exploits, cops and robbers. As we got older, we'd talk about moving to New Orleans or living in one of the mansions along the beachfront that lay less than 5 miles away, across the railroad tracks that ran in between our neighborhood and the more wealthy environs. We dreamed of more, while our parents' lives centered around survival and making it from paycheck to paycheck. Instinctively, we understood that more had to be possible, even if we didn't know what to do to get there. These imaginings, these desires, are the roots of ambition. As adults, like Valerie, we tend to edit our desires until they fit our construction of who we're supposed to become. In such a world, I wouldn't dare dream of running for higher office, for mayor or governor or president. At least for now, Valerie sees herself retiring in 20 more years from Piggly Wiggly as a cashier, rather than as a small business owner who helps the community raise its children. From our brief meeting, I could see she had the fire, albeit of a low burn, of a minority leader. She had ambition, she had vision, but she didn't have the faith, and understandably so. Whether we come from working class neighborhoods or grow up comfortably middle class, minorities rarely come of age explicitly thinking about what we want and how to get it. People already in power almost never have to think about whether they belong in the room, much less if they would be listened to once outside. These men, and they are usually men and typically white, do not have to grapple with low expectations based on gender or race or class. Ambition for them begins with reminiscences of old times and older friendships or newer alliances. The ends have already been decided. Only the means are to be discussed. Most potential minority leaders feel the same lack of faith Valerie had, at least at some point in their evolution. We may not know how to get the first job, let alone make it to the big chair. We don't know how to take the leap from accepting our fates to actually changing them, and not just a little, but radically. Then there are those who simply don't know what they want. The drive to achieve burns inside, often without a clear target. We want to be something, but what that is remains hazy. Often we cannot articulate our goals because they lie just beyond the reach of who we're supposed to be. Ambition's scale is irrelevant. What holds us back is not scope, it's fear. And because we don't know what to call our dreams, don't know how to make them happen, or are pretty sure we'll be disappointed, we just stand still. We become a minority, but becoming a minority leader demands that we embrace ambition as our due. Stacey Abrams.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome back. Phil Ittner's on the line with us, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. Philip Ittner on Twitter, Ittner Philip on, actually, I think it's Ittner Philip, isn't it? Phil? Yeah. And on Blue Sky. Phil, welcome back. I understand that you guys are really going through a rough time right now.
Yeah, it is minus 14 Celsius currently. Have I got that right? Minus 12, minus 14, 4 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't have any heating in the building, so I'm relying on power banks, and
which means your pipes are freezing too.
The potential, yeah. Let me get to that in a moment. But like so many in Kiev currently, hundreds are currently without heating, water, or power. Maybe one of that combination, or maybe they don't have any. I, for example, have water, and I occasionally get electricity, but I am now 11 hours into a stint with no electricity. The authorities are advising tricks like, get into a small enclosed place and just light some candles just to get some heat, not just light, but heat. Which is possible to do, and I can attest to that. Other ideas that have been put out there is, put a big pot of water on the stove, and because you're still getting gas, so you can heat through steam. They're setting up around the city centers where people can go and charge their phones, their power banks, get some warmth. Get something hot to eat, that sort of thing. They're setting up these kind of ad hoc inflatable power stations, and the mayor has been asking for more, and so is Zelensky, and so they're going to try and set up more here. They've declared a state of an emergency because of this. Tom, now we're going into the 4th year of this war. Sadly, we've had 2 things happen here, I think, and that is, 3 things. Firstly, this is the most bitter winter I've spent in Ukraine since I came here at the beginning of the full-scale invasion. We kind of got lucky. The last couple of winters were relatively mild. This is a bitter, bitter winter, and it couldn't come at a worse time because, of course, the Russians have decided to purposefully target energy and heating,
civilian infrastructure. Yeah.
Which Ukrainians are calling a war crime. And then thirdly, the last thing is nobody's paying attention. There's a lot going on in the world. I know as an American, I'm watching, the fallout of Minnesota, and I'm enraged, and that takes my focus as well. And, we see what's happening in Iran and Venezuela and all of that. But I'm telling you, Tom, this has the makings of a major humanitarian crisis. If something isn't done to try to bring back heat, in particular, to this city and cities around Ukraine, you're going to have people dying and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but you're going to have lots of people dying from exposure to the elements. The elderly, in particular. A lot of the architecture, and particularly in cities like Kiev, are multi-story buildings. So, are you going to carry your 79-year-old mother down or grandmother down, 18 flights of stairs? They don't have the facility for long-term housing in Kiev. There are places out in certain sectors of the country where they do. But then we're going to have another internally displaced persons crisis like we did at the very beginning of the war. And, potentially also, if things get really inhospitable, you're going to have another massive influx of Ukrainians into Europe. And that's going to put more pressure on them as well. And, we continue to be attacked. We had 4 attacks today so far.
Am I correct in assuming that Donald Trump is still withholding American air defense systems from Ukraine, and that's why the attacks are getting through?
In no small part, yes. There are some things that are getting through. I believe there was a Patriot system that was delivered, but it's a fraction of what it used to be, and the Europeans are trying to step it up, but. They need air defense. Absolutely, they need air defense. But what is urgent, what is critical right now, is infrastructure. We got to get some mobile generators, transformers, engineers. Ukrainian civil engineers are amongst some of the best in the world at responding to missile attacks and things like that, and getting things back online. But these are long stretches now without electricity, and that also generally means without heat. And so this has the makings of being a real humanitarian crisis. And because there's so much else going on around the world, I think Putin is taking advantage of this moment to really lay into the civilian infrastructure. And we've heard from some authorities around the European Union and what have you, pledging support and promising to do what they can. But I mean, this needs to be done right now. We're in January, mid-January. Things don't start to get really, manageable temperature-wise, usually in this country until mid-February. And so we haven't had the coldest snap yet, and we're being told by meteorologists that we can expect this weekend for temperatures to drop down to minus 20 Celsius. And forgive me, I haven't done the arithmetic on that for Fahrenheit. But I mean, I can't stress enough that we are on the edge of a very serious crisis here in Kiev, and unless some infrastructure is brought in. Now, I've also heard from authorities here that one of the things that they're doing is bringing in mobile generators on wheels, huge, not closet size or room size, but like
on a flatbed,
on flatbed trucks, And that would be advantageous for a number of reasons, not least of which because you could apply them to, wherever the emergency is, but also because that's going to make it harder for the Russians to target them.
Yeah,
so they'll be able to move them around the city.
Yeah, I understand.
Park them where they're needed.
Part of the problem is that the power systems and water and heat systems and whatnot were all built by the Soviet Union back in the day when everything was centralized. So
there's all central heating. So you mentioned pipes. Also, this is also another major concern, is the fact that the longer that we go without central heating, the pipes in buildings are going to start to freeze and burst. And that's going to cause a whole other, secondary and tertiary series of problems and difficulties that the civil, the civil, authorities can deal with, and they're already overwhelmed. So this is a very, very serious situation.
I get it. What can Americans do?
The worst I've seen. I sound like a broken record. Call your congressman. Tell them that you support Ukraine, and tell them we need, that there needs to be, somebody needs to bring to the floor some sort of bill that says we're going to send, civil support. We're going to send, electrical or mechanical and technical support. I mean, you can say what you want about the last ambassador here, who was dismissed by Donald Trump, Bridget Brink, who is now, I believe, running for Congress in Michigan. I wish I could vote for her, but I'm in a different district. You could say what you want about her, and there were many who were critical of her because she didn't push for weaponry to be sent here. But she was very good about, making sure that replacement substations were here, that there was redundancy for the electrical or the heating and the water. We don't have an ambassador right now. Trump has not put forward an ambassador. We have a charge of affairs in interim, and it's not good enough.
Trump is kowtowing to his boss, Putin, or his role model, or both. Phil, I read last week that Ukraine has made a strategic change in their offensive policies, that they had been striking nothing but Russian military facilities. And they're going to continue doing that, but now they're starting to look at civilian energy infrastructure the way that Russia is doing it to Ukraine. Is that the case?
There's been talk of this. There's obviously a lot of anger here. There's a desire to see the Russians suffer as Ukrainians are suffering. That is not 100% of the population, but you can understand the anger. I've heard more about this from the Russians, who are kind of, they're getting ahead of things by saying, if you dare do to us what we're doing to you, there are going to be these massive, repercussions.
Right.
Ukrainians are going to do what Ukrainians are going to do, and if they do start striking Russian electrical grids and putting cities like Rostov or, I don't know, anyhow, cities, inside Russia and people start suffering from the cold, it's not going to go well for them in a lot of different ways. They'll lose the moral high ground. It doesn't, and it doesn't really serve a strategic purpose. It's just, it would be a tit for tat punishment. So it's very controversial, this idea. But yes, that has been floated.
Yeah. So keep blowing up the military facilities. Phil, stay safe, stay warm. Good luck.
Do our best, Tom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick with it. And please, anybody listening, this is a crisis situation.
Right. Reach out to your members of Congress. The telephone number for the House of Representatives and the Senate is 202-224-3121. And, call all three, your member of the House and both of your senators. Phil, good luck, my friend, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour. Did a billionaire with interest in Greenland convince Trump to acquire that island? We'll talk about that right after this. Welcome back. Claudia in Columbia, South Carolina. Hey, Claudia, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. It's about Trump's insurrection, sending the military to Minnesota. Do you think the military will protect the people or work with the federal agents? Because it says that the military are to protect the American citizens from foreign and domestic. All I've seen is these agents terrorize and kill people.
Yep.
So is that what our military will be doing?
I expect so, Claudia.
For the people.
No, I expect so because, number one, we have an all-volunteer military, and those of us, for 25 years on this program, or 24 years on this program, I've been ranting about this. Charlie Rangel used to come on the program regularly and say, we need a draft. We need everybody in America to have, you need a military that represents a broad diversity of perspectives. And you don't get that with an all-volunteer military. You get a bunch of people who just say, sir, yes, sir, number one. Number two, Hegseth has basically decapitated the senior leadership of the military, removing virtually all of the people of color, virtually all of the women. And then he pulled everybody into Washington, D.C., all of his flag officers, and gave this bizarre rant and filmed them all. And apparently anybody who rolled their eyes or didn't, clap at the right time is also targeted for firing. So you've got a military now that was originally inclined to be very authoritarian because it's all volunteer, and now has had, and he's also fired all the JAG officers, the military lawyers who tell you what's legal and what's not, when you can disobey an illegal order and when you can't. He fired those guys. So, Trump and Hegseth have done their very best to create a military that will terrorize America. And I fully expect that if this continues.
I hope they don't.
I do too.
Hope they'll stand up for us.
I do too. Claudia, thanks. That was a brilliant question. Thank you for the call. Michael in Las Vegas. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yes, good morning, Tom. Tom, do you think that maybe that if a Democratic Congress can make Trump give back everything that he stole from us, like the $500 million that he put into an account in one of the Arab countries?
Well, now he's got the Department of Justice wanting to give him $500 million to cover his legal expenses and his pain and suffering for when they prosecuted him. And I haven't heard a peep out of that. I mean, they may well have already given him the money. This guy is he makes grifters look good.
Yeah, so it was a whole new meaning. Just wow.
We've never seen anything like this in the United States. I mean, we've had presidents who left office rich. I mean, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are good examples. But they made their money in a way that I think you could argue was legitimate, speaking fees and book sales. Trump is cutting deals where he's giving American weaponry to foreign countries, and in exchange for that, they're giving him billion-dollar Trump hotel deals. Saudi Arabia just announced an $8 billion Trump hotel and golf course, thing just last week. And the money just pours. It's just pouring into Donald Trump. In exchange for that, of course, he's giving Saudi Arabia F-35s, which they've been forbidden by law up until now from having. So, I'm not optimistic, Michael. Michael, thank you for the call. We'll be back. Stick around. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So when a political party embraces violence as a political tool, what is the end game? Where does this lead? How does this work out? How does this end?
We've seen this in other countries historically. In fact, we tend to refer to them as fascist countries. We saw it in Germany and Spain and Italy in the 30s. We saw it in the 60s in Chile with Pinochet. It appears to be happening now here in America as well. We have Republican politicians calling for violence, calling for civil war, preaching violence and not to mention the former president, Donald Trump, basically begging for violence to defend him. And how does this work out? It tends not to work out well. And there's a whole piece laying out all the details of this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, "What is the End Game for a Party of Violence?" Check it out.
The echoes of history call our name. A world divided, a deadly game. From Kiev streets to the western shore, freedom's cry we can't ignore. Will we stand and hold the line against the shadows' dark design? Their fight for justice is not alone. The fight for Ukraine's future is our own. Rise up, for liberty's flame. The cost is high, but we'll shoulder the blame. Against the tyrants, against the throne. The fight for Ukraine's future is our own.
25 minutes past the hour, so this is pretty amazing. John Bolton tells this story about when he was a national security advisor in the first Trump administration, 2018. He told The Guardian, quote, that Trump came to him and said, quote, "A prominent businessman has just suggested that the U.S. buy Greenland." Now, this was 7 years ago, right? The businessman is a guy named Ronald Lauder. He's the heir to the makeup fortune, the cosmetic brand Estee Lauder. And he's known Trump for more than 60 years. They went to school together. And Bolton said he discussed this Greenland proposition with Lauder. Lauder has acquired commercial holdings there. This is from The Guardian, a piece by Tom Burgess. Lauder has acquired commercial holdings there. Lauder is also part of the consortium whose desire to access Ukrainian minerals appears to have spurred Trump to demand a share of that war-torn country's resources. They ended up, of course, signing an agreement with Trump, saying that, you know, if they won the war, the United States could have some of their minerals. Excuse me. Lauder said he was assisting Trump with, quote, "some of the most complex diplomatic challenges imaginable, having to do with the Arctic." The Wall Street Journal revealed Trump's interest in Greenland. Lauder wrote in the New York Post, quote, "Beneath its ice and rock lies a treasure trove of rare earth elements essential for AI, advanced weaponry, and modern technology. As ice recedes, new maritime routes are emerging, reshaping global trade and security." This is Greenland. The cosmetics billionaire seems to have plowed lots of his own money into the Arctic territory. Danish corporate records show a company with New York address and unnamed owners has recently bought into Greenland. They're exporting luxury spring water from an island in Baffin Bay. And the Danish newspaper reported that Lauder was among the investors. They're also trying to generate hydropower from Greenland's biggest lake for an aluminum smelter. So now it looks like Donald Trump's got another billionaire who wants him to do something, and that's why he's going after Greenland.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Check out the article over at The Guardian. It's got a lot more detail in it. It's really shocking. 27 minutes past the hour. What's going on with the Fed? I'll tell you about that after the break and pick up your calls. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Tyranny, From Plato to Trump, Fools, Sycophants, and Citizens by Andrew Fiala. This is from the preface. It starts out with a quote from Mary Wollstonecraft from her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Quote, "Tyrants would have cause to tremble if reason were to become the rule of duty." We recently witnessed the failure of a would-be tyrant who attempted to subvert the rule of law and overturn the result of a democratic election. The American system was pushed toward a cliff, but constitutional guardrails slowed things down. Conscientious people pumped the brakes.
and the system held. This was a lesson of tyranny averted. We should take stock and learn what worked and what needs improvement in our system and in our souls. And while the American crisis of 2020-2021 was frightening, a broader historical perspective helps. The threat of tyranny is common, but the cure is well known. It involves virtuous citizenship and a stable constitution. The tyrant's rise and fall is an old story. Consider, a plague descended on the nation as the tyrant ranted and raved, refusing to admit that he was the cause of the nation's ills. The tyrant lived in a fantasy world of his own creation. He refused to accept what was said by those who spoke truth to power. Instead, he listened only to those who flattered his ego and encouraged him in his delusions. The nation suffered profoundly under the tyrant and his plague. He tried to blame the plague on some other scapegoat. Members of the public were seduced by the tyrant and his sycophants to sacrifice everything on behalf of a lie. Violence erupted. When the awful truth was finally revealed, the chorus reached a tragic conclusion. Our lives were mere shadows, and then there's a block of poetry here. Our lives were mere shadows, happiness fades away to nothing. The tyrant's fall reminds us that no human creation lasts forever. Plague and trouble make victims of us all. This is from Oedipus, the Tyrant, lines 1190. This is the story of Oedipus. It is also the story of Donald Trump. The players in this tragedy are found throughout history. They are the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic masses. The tyrant rages, the sycophants simper, the masses cheer and howl, fight and die. As the plague spreads, good things fall apart and decency suffers. This tragedy brings with it the risk of despair. The good news is that the cure for this disease is well known. It is, as Mary Wollstonecraft suggested, reason. Life in general must be made reasonable. This means we need a reasonable constitution as well as wise and virtuous citizens. Wisdom and virtue work together to prevent tyranny. Plato and Aristotle knew this, as did John Adams. Adams wrote in his diary when he was Vice President of the United States, quote, "Tyranny can scarcely be practiced upon a virtuous and wise people." But wisdom, virtue, and reason are often lacking. Wollstonecraft, I've got my Marys wrong. This is Wollstonecraft, I'm sorry. Wollstonecraft laments the fact that, quote, "tyranny in whatever part of society it rears its brazen front will ever undermine morality." Tyranny is not only a political problem, it is also a moral and spiritual one. It afflicts our souls as well as churches, businesses, and family life. Wollstonecraft's important contribution was to argue that for the liberation of women in an era when women were oppressed by the tyranny of patriarchal families. Wollstonecraft was a contemporary of Thomas Jefferson and other thinkers of the 18th century Enlightenment. Despite their claims to enlightenment, the heroes of this tradition suffered from moral blindness, as we all do. Jefferson's words inspired a revolution against the tyrant King George III. The words inscribed in the Jefferson Memorial state, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." But Jefferson owned slaves, one of the more obvious forms of tyranny in the world. We must all be careful of our blind spots. Reason aims to shed light by holding up a mirror. The remedy for tyranny is philosophical self-examination. This is an ongoing process, not a panacea. Each generation must seek to make progress on their path to enlightenment. The good news is that we have made progress. Women were liberated and slavery was abolished. The idea that wisdom and virtue can cure tyranny predates the Enlightenment by over 2,000 years. It was the solution proposed by the ancient Greeks, who gave us the very language we will employ here. Words such as tyranny, sycophancy, democracy, and political philosophy. The Greeks emphasized the need for virtue among the players in the political drama. Modern thinkers built upon this and emphasized the need for a rational system of government that prevents tyranny. Tragedy is avoided when leaders and citizens are virtuous and when a stable constitutional system guarantees individual rights, divides power, and creates checks and balances. We have known the cure for thousands of years, but the disease is genetic. Every generation or so, the conditions conspire to bring together an ugly cast of characters that includes the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic fools who cheer him on. The book, Tyranny from Plato to Trump, by Andrew Fiala. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. You know, they wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, you know, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, you know, just they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the First, Fourth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out.
He rolled into a small town crowd, talking working man proud. Shook a couple calloused hands, smiled for the camera loud. But behind that stage light shine, it's a different plan. Write the rules for gilded thrones and build the common man. It's a great betrayal. Dressed up in red, white, blue, they point at us for blame while they're cutting deals in rooms. You can hear them say you're fighting, but the ink don't lie. It's the rich get rescued and the rest get by.
36 minutes past the hour. So speaking of the rich getting rescued, the Federal Reserve has quietly delivered, this is from Luke Goldstein over at levernews.com. The Federal Reserve has quietly delivered nearly $500 billion to Wall Street with few strings attached over the past few months through an obscure government financial program intended for banks struggling to make cash payments. This raises a lot of questions. I mean, they started this on June 30th with $11 billion they gave the banks. Then on Halloween, they gave another $50 billion. And then the New York, in the last 7 months, the New York Federal Reserve has transferred more than $420 billion to our banks. Why are our banks getting all this welfare? Well, you know, of course, in part so that, you know, Jamie Dimon and the other senior executives can continue to take multi-million-dollar a week salaries, or a month, or whatever it may be. But that lump sum, that $420 billion that we have so far in just the last couple of months given to the banks in New York that the Fed has, is the same. It's almost equivalent to the pot of money that Congress passed to give the banks in 2008 under TARP. Remember the Troubled Asset Relief Program? And the central bank has encouraged Wall Street to use the program. They've lifted their $500 billion cap on these transactions, so there's no limit on how much money the banks can get. And a lot of people are wondering what the hell is going on. Do we actually have several banks that are in such a crisis that they need to be bailed out by the Fed? Or are they anticipating that because we are now entering a severe recession? Or both? They note, you know, the banks are taking this money, but this is a quote from the Lever News piece. But according to critics, the money has instead frequently ended up in the hands of hedge funds and other financial firms, which often use it to make risky bets on various securities and derivatives that can be more profitable than ordinary loans. So this one Philip Basil, a director at the consumer advocacy group Better Markets. He said, financial firms have learned and are just kind of expecting that anytime something bad happens, the Fed is going to bail them out. And that is virtually the definition of a moral hazard. So we don't know which banks have gotten this money. We don't know why. But $500 billion just going to the banks in New York? Something is rotten and it ain't Denmark. Something is rotten in New York. To paraphrase Hamlet. All right, Diane in Pauley, New York. Hey, Diane, what's up?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. If I may, I've been listening to your show, and there has been a lot of talk about money and, grift and all of that. Before I speak to the issue I did call about, I would like to mention right after Trump took Venezuela, I happened to see him being interviewed on Air Force One, and he mentioned very briefly, and I haven't heard it come up again, that the money that is made on the oil is going to be deposited into offshore accounts.
Oh, geez.
I found that very interesting and very telling.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm calling because I was at one of the many protests against the ICE shooting on Saturday. I live in a small area. There are very few of us who show up because this happens to be MAGA country. Our little group was winding down. Many people had left. There were about 4 of us left. And a woman stopped in the street, started screaming at us from her car window, then felt it necessary to open her door, come across the street to us. Now, she had to cross a median and 2 traffic lanes and attacked us.
Physically?
And assaulted us.
Physically?
Yeah, oh, yes, physically.
How? What'd she do?
First, one lady was wearing glasses. They were hanging on one of those neck chain things. She ripped those off her and crushed them. They were little thin wire frame glasses. She crushed them, demolished them.
Wow.
Took her sign, ripped it up, and threw it on the ground. Went to the next lady standing next to her, tried to punch her in the chest, but her sign was blocking her. We were fumbling, trying to get at our phones to try and take pictures of this, but, wearing heavy gloves, the phone's in the bag and all of that. I finally got my phone. I thought I was trying to take her picture assaulting this second lady, and it turned out I was so verschimmeled I never pressed the shutter release.
Oh.
And when she saw me trying to film her, she then knocked that lady down to the ground and attacked me, grabbed my glasses off my face, broke them, and flung them on the ground, and then struggled and manhandled me to get my phone and threw it. She had taken the other lady's phone and threw it. And then when, I got up off the floor and started yelling, call the police, call the police. By this time, people were in the street filming us. Someone finally yelled, they're on their way, the police, meaning the police. And then I don't know if that scared her or she just felt she was finished. She went back across 2 lanes of traffic and the median and back into her car and drove away.
Wow.
Now, at least people had taken pictures of her car and her license plate shortly after. I'm not sure. I think
Have you reported this? Are you filing assault
afterwards.
charges against her?
Well, this is part of the interesting aftermath. There's so many things that are going on. Now, we discovered there was a short article and video about the incident the day after, and it turns out they are charging her with 2 misdemeanor criminal mischief counts. Now, they did give her an opportunity a couple of days later. There was a small article getting her to tell her side. In her side, she says we provoked her. She was defending herself and that she never laid a hand on us. And this is a quiet, peaceful community, a conservative MAGA community. Wow. Now, it was interesting because the article, and it was on News 12, so I believe it was on TV. They juxtaposed with this article and her side, they juxtaposed a 30-second video someone had submitted. It was the very tail end of the incident, showing her throwing us around. The reporter who did that, I was able to get in touch with the reporter. Our assemblyman very kindly put me in touch with him. He actually came to speak with me today and informed me that the woman who assaulted us called him up to let him know that the video that was shown with her side was faked.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing.
you know, more fake news, more fake whatever.
Yeah.
But I spoke with one of the state troopers yesterday, and he told me yesterday they hadn't had the video originally. And since they have gotten the video, there are more charges, more serious charges pending against this lady.
That's good. I mean, have you volunteered to prosecute for assault?
Well, on Saturday after the attack and on Sunday, I told the state trooper very clearly that I wanted her prosecuted for assault.
Yeah. Well,
you know, they asked
I think you have
if
to
we wanted
actually have
to press charges, and I said definitely.
Yeah. Well, now you need to talk to the prosecuting attorney for your city or county.
Well, you know, there's so much that has to happen and is going on, and I have been totally traumatized. I have not been functioning properly ever since.
I get it, Diane.
I'm trying very hard to focus my rage into doing positive things.
Yeah, Diane,
I'm contacting people.
I'm sorry, I'm out of time here, Diane, but keep us up to date on how it goes,
Thank you.
And I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
What a horrible story. 46 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Well, specifically your calls right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Helping you win the water cooler wars. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back, Randy in Smock, Pennsylvania. Hey, Randy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. When Trump deployed our troops to Venezuela, what was that, the first week of September?
Mm-hmm.
And deployed our air power to Puerto Rico, B-52s, etc. I didn't see the OAS come to session one damn time.
The Organization of American States?
Now, yeah. If there was a country in Europe attacked, you would see the General Assembly of the UN Security Council the following day. But I was checking C-SPAN for the OAS, and I didn't see him deployed one day.
Well, you know, the United States is the largest member of the OAS. That may have something to do with it.
Well, it takes up Canada, the United States, and South America and Central.
Yeah. No, I get it. I can't speak to it specifically, Randy, because I have not been tracking what the OAS is up to or what they've been doing or saying or anything else for, probably more than a decade. But yeah, that's interesting. You would expect that there would have been at least some kind of response. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Because that's why I always watch C-SPAN, mainly because of that.
Yeah.
Especially when there's war.
Yeah.
But,
no, I get it. Randy, thank you. Let me do some digging on this and see what I can find. I appreciate the tip. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Charles in Fernandina Beach, Florida. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to make a suggestion in preparation for Trump declaring martial law and us being able to respond to that quickly and peacefully. I suggest we stop working. Everybody, and we plan ahead. We talk about we're going to do this. Everybody doesn't go to work. All the shops are shut down. All commerce in the United States comes to a stop. Now, of course, this would freak out Wall Street, and that would probably be enough to stop him from doing what he's doing, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know, I love the idea of boycotts, Charles. The problem, and I keep pointing this out, is that when you see these mass boycott operations or, shut down the government or whatever, in Europe, they're invariably organized by the unions. And you've got 70, 80, 90% union participation in those European countries. Here we've got fewer than 10% of us in the private sector are members of unions. And a lot of the unions are frankly not all that politically active. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and I've never gotten an email telling me to go out and participate in an action that didn't have to do with actors and stuff like that. So I don't know how to do that, Charles. Do you? How do you organize that?
Well, in advance, and like Indivisible and all the other organizations around say, if this man tries this, we need to respond in the most peaceful and effective way we can. And even if 40% or 30% of the nation stopped going to work, it would have a major impact.
Yeah.
So I would.
No, that's absolutely true. It's just how do you get even 5% of the country to do any one thing without good communications? Plus, you've got basically 8 billionaires who control about 90% of our media, and they're not going to promote that kind of a message. So I love the idea. I just don't know how to do it. Charles, thank you for the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back, 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Brian in Minneapolis. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hello, Tom.
Hey, Brian.
There is evidence in Minneapolis and St. Paul that the service industries that depend on brown-skinned people for their employees, those businesses are having difficulty staying open because the people are afraid to come to work.
Yeah.
Now, it seems to me if those people are afraid to come to work, they are also going to be afraid to vote.
Well, if you're talking about U.S. citizens, yeah, you also have people who are afraid. I mean, the bigger problem, and there's a Mexican restaurant here in town that Louise and I regularly frequent. They have wonderful food. It's owned by a little local family, and they're suffering because their Mexican clientele, people who are, some of them not here with documentation, most of them here with, green cards or even citizens, but they're just afraid to go out. So they're not going out to dinner anymore. I mean, it's really hurt. And I'm guessing this is happening all over the country, Brian.
And yeah.
Or at least in all the blue states.
When it comes to the election, they're going to be afraid to come out to vote.
Yeah.
Whether they're here, I mean, the legal people that are legally to vote, I mean, here in Minneapolis and St. Paul, I don't believe that any of the people that this ICE gang has fought, I don't think any of them were here illegally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and the last caller talking about a boycott, if the brown-skinned people went on strike, that means the dairy cows don't get milked, the poultry doesn't get processed, the pork doesn't get processed, the beef doesn't get processed.
Yeah. The problem is those are the people who can least afford to go on strike. They don't have a union to give them union pay, strike pay. and most of them are living, very much just kind of on the edge.
I agree. Yes. And ICE doesn't go to those facilities.
No, ICE does. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, ICE isn't even showing up in red states. This is a civil war, I believe, that Donald Trump has declared against blue state America, and I think it's going to get worse. And I think if he gets his Insurrection Act, it's going to get real ugly. He's going to try to purge America of blue states and blue cities. Brian, thank you for the call. Brian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Brian, thanks for listening to KTRC. What's up?
Hey, good day. I think it's important to remember that we're starting to see the glimpse of the post-Trump era. And the election, hopefully we win it, is only a little more than 300 days away. And I wish some enterprising Democrat would announce his run for the presidency. Start the 98 election.
Well, Gavin Newsom has all but done that.
Well, okay, well, let's get out there and counter-program the next 300 days. Because Trump is going to have some big celebration on the 4th of July for the 200th year of America, and they're going to exploit it for everything they can. And I want to make the point that Trump is always going to turn up the crazy. He wants to agitate people. I saw a author on C-SPAN he wrote a book about Nazi propaganda. And one of the things I took from it was that their desire was to always keep the public stirred up and hot and anxious.
Yeah, keep them boiling, actually, is the phrase that Goebbels used.
Right. So why can't some young Democrat, like I was just thinking, Mark Kelly would be perfect. He's a former Navy fighter pilot, an astronaut. Middle America will listen to Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
He should announce his run for the presidency right now.
People are talking about that.
Counter-programming.
I've seen 2 or 3 posts on social media saying Mark Kelly for president. I don't know enough about his policies to know if I'd support him, but he seems like a good guy.
Everybody is just reacting to the shock and the idiocy of Donald Trump constantly. It's like a parade, and everybody just follows him to Stupidville. We need to start counter-programming and get ahead of the issues instead of laying back and then being shocked and angry and disturbed about what he's done next. Because you know what? He's going to do something else. And in 4 weeks, he's going to do something else.
No, I get it. We're way too reactive and not enough proactive. I totally get it.
Someone needs to grab the spotlight and start counter-programming and take him on. Take on fascism. If you want socialism, sell socialism. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Actually, I shouldn't have tried to cut you off because I've only got about 20 seconds here left, but maybe 30.
We should expect the crazy, and we should be talking about it. Anticipate what he's going to do, because we know he's going to do something idiotic. It's automatic. It's just that's the play. But everybody's shocked when he does it.
The question in my mind is, what do we do when he declares the Insurrection Act? When he says he can put the military in the streets.
Somebody was talking to America and helping them realize that people fighting in the streets is exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
So don't give it to him.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you got Mark Milley saying,
looking for a fight on both sides of the aisle.
Right. He wanted the soldiers to shoot people in the legs. I mean, I think it's going to get really ugly. I really do. Brian, thank you for the call. I think you're right. Trump wants spectacle. He wants chaos. So meanwhile, are the ICE goons immune? Stephen Miller just came out and said that the ICE goons are completely immune. You have complete immunity. Is that true? Sabrina Haake, an attorney who knows this stuff, will tell you all about it right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Today is Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster by Adam Higginbotham. This is from the prologue. Saturday, April 26, 1986, 4:16 p.m., Chernobyl Atomic Energy Station, Ukraine. Senior Lieutenant Alexander Logachev loved radiation the way other men love their wives. Tall and good-looking, 26 years old, with close-cropped dark hair and ice-blue eyes, Logachev had joined the Soviet Army when he was still a boy. They had trained him well. The instructors from the military academy outside Moscow taught him with lethal poisons and unshielded radiation. He traveled to the testing grounds of Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan and to the desolate East Urals trace, where the fallout from a clandestine radioactive accident still poisoned the landscape. Eventually, Logachev's training took him even to the remote and forbidden islands of Novaya Zemlya, high in the Arctic Circle, and ground zero for the detonation of the terrible Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear device in history. Now, as the lead radiation reconnaissance officer of the 427th Red Banner Mechanized Regiment of the Kiev District Civil Defense Force, Logachev knew how to protect himself and his three-man crew from nerve agents, biological weapons, gamma rays, and hot particles, by doing their work just as the textbooks dictated, by trusting his dosimetry equipment, and, when necessary, reaching for the nuclear, bacterial, and chemical warfare medical kits stored in the cockpit of their armored car. But he also believed that the best protection was psychological. These men who allowed themselves to fear radiation were most at risk. But those who came to love and appreciate its spectral presence, to understand its caprices, could endure even the most intense gamma bombardment and emerge as healthy as before. As he sped through the suburbs of Kiev that morning at the head of a column of more than 30 vehicles summoned to an emergency at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Logachev had every reason to feel confident. The spring air blowing through the hatches of his armored scout car carried the smell of the trees and the freshly cut grass. His men, gathered on the parade ground just the night before for their monthly inspection, were drilled and ready. At his feet, a battery of radiological detection instruments, including a newly installed electronic device twice as sensitive as the old model, murmured softly, revealing nothing unusual in the atmosphere around them. But as they finally approached the plant later that morning, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. The alarm on the radiation dosimeter first sounded as they passed the concrete signpost marking the perimeter of the power station grounds, and the lieutenant gave orders to stop the vehicle and log their findings. 51 roentgens per hour. If they waited here just 60 minutes, they would all absorb the maximum dose of radiation permitted Soviet troops during wartime. They drove on, following the line of high-voltage transmission towers that marched toward the horizon in the direction of the power plant. Their readings climbed still further before falling again. Then, as the armored car rumbled along the concrete bank of the station's cooling canal, the outline of the fourth unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant finally became visible, and Logachev and his crew gazed at it in silence. The roof of the 20-story building had been torn open, its other upper levels blackened and collapsed into heaps of rubble. They could see shattered panels of ferroconcrete, tumbled blocks of graphite, and here and there the glittering metal casings of fuel assemblies from the core of a nuclear reactor. A cloud of steam drifted from the wreckage into the sunlit sky. Yet they had orders to conduct a full reconnaissance of the plant. Their armored car crawled counterclockwise around the complex at 10 kilometers an hour. Sergeant Vlaskin called out the radiation readings from the new instruments, and Logachev scribbled them down on a map, hand-drawn on a sheet of parchment paper in ballpoint pen and colored marker. 1 roentgen per hour, then 2, then 3. They turned left and the figures began to rise quickly. 10, 30, 50, 100. 250 roentgens an hour, the sergeant shouted, his eyes widening. Comrade Lieutenant, he began, and pointed at the radiometer. Logachev looked down at the digital readout and felt his scalp prickle with terror. 2,080 roentgens an hour, an impossible number. Logachev struggled to remain calm and remember the textbook, to conquer his fear. But his training failed him, and the lieutenant heard himself screaming in panic at the driver, petrified that the vehicle would stall. Why are you going this way, you son of a bee? Are you out of your effing mind? If this thing dies, we'll all be corpses in 15 minutes. Part 1, Chapter 1, The Soviet Prometheus.
At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, black birds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenklatura from Moscow. When the helicopter touched down, the delegation of ministers and Communist Party officials trudged together over the icy field. The savage cold gnawed at their heavy woolen coats and nipped beneath their tall fur hats. The head of the Ministry of Energy and Electrification of the USSR and senior party bosses from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine joined Brukhanov at the spot where their audacious new project was to begin. Just 34 years old, clever and ambitious, a dedicated party man, Brukhanov had come to Western Ukraine with orders to begin building what would become the greatest nuclear power station on Earth. Midnight at Chernobyl.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. On the line with us, Sabrina Haake, the federal trial attorney, 20-plus years, specializing in First and 14th Amendment defense cases, a contributor to numerous law journals and publications, including the Chicago Tribune, and her own extraordinary newsletter, which, if you have not yet subscribed to, you need to. It's free. It's brilliant. SabrinaHaake.substack.com. Sabrina, S-A-B-R-I-N-A, Haake, H-A-A-K-E, 2 A's. Haake_Sabrina is her Twitter handle. SabrinaHaake.substack.com if you want to track down the newsletter. It's called the Haake Take, H-A-A-K-E. Sabrina, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we spoke. I appreciate your coming in. You wrote this brilliant piece over at your newsletter, No, ICE goons are not immune from criminal prosecution under state laws. I've noticed that there's like just kind of radio silence out of Minneapolis about Jonathan Ross, the guy who murdered Renee Good. And I'm wondering if that's because maybe in the background they're impaneling a grand jury. What do you think?
Well, I don't know why. I know that Trump has said that if the states come after these agents, that he's going to do everything in his power to block their prosecution. But right now what they're doing is trying to confuse the public, and they're confusing ICE agents as well. And if there are any ICE agents listening, I hope that they'll do their own research, because what the Trump administration is telling everyone about absolute immunity is absolutely false and pretty easily disproved. What Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance are talking about is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity applies to civil cases, not criminal cases. So if you want to sue someone, if you want to sue the government official for blinding you, for et cetera, and you're looking for money damages, qualified immunity applies. That's only in the civil context. The much more dramatic process would be the criminal case. So in the case of Mr. Ross, as I read the statute and the supremacy clause, which is what really Trump and et cetera is trying to defend him with, he has a serious case on his hands. I don't know whether it's a slam dunk, but certainly he is not immune from prosecution under the Supremacy Clause. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there's been so much deliberate misinformation from the Trump team. People can educate themselves. The Supremacy Clause asks two things. Was the agent doing something within the scope of his duties, and was he acting reasonably? Neither of those questions is a slam dunk. In Ross's case, you could ask all kinds of questions about why he pulled his van over in front of Renee Good's van. And you get into the granular facts of that case. But the bigger question is, what is ICE doing traffic stops? Is immigration enforcement, does that include debt collection? Does that include welfare fraud investigations? Does it include any of the things that some of the ICE agents are doing when they're engaging in these unconstitutional acts? And I think that is a big ask. And bringing a case, even under the Supremacy Clause, you need to look at first, was Ross acting within the scope of his duties? And there are a lot of facts that we don't know. Why was Renee's car parked sideways? Why did Ross park his car to block hers? What was the exchange? Now, we've seen a lot of the exchange, but what was the context? And was he acting within the scope of his duties? If she was just pulled over on the side of the road due to ICE, he had no business interacting with her at all. If she was deliberately blocking access, then it gets a little grayer. But you can see how the question of was he acting in his duties is itself a gray question. Then the question becomes, if you satisfy that hurdle and say that he was acting in his duties, within the scope of his duties, then was what he did reasonable and necessary under the circumstances? That's another big question that is definitely not a slam dunk. Was it reasonably necessary for him to be the way he was with her? Was standing in front of the car, walking in front of the car, pulling in front of her car? Were any of those things reasonably necessary, which these are the predicate facts that led to her being murdered? So those two tiers have to be examined before you can say that he has immunity under the Supremacy Clause. And I know that Trump and Miller and Vance are trying to convince ICE agents that they have immunity. But you really, if you're an ICE agent or you care about an ICE agent or you're thinking about it, you need to educate yourself. And I'm going to give you a case that you can read yourself. It's good case law. This is the Ruby Ridge shooting. I'm sure you remember it, Tom.
Sure, Randy Weaver.
Yeah. So in that case, an FBI agent shot a woman, but he didn't intend to shoot her. He thought he was shooting at Randy Weaver. He shot into the house. The state brought criminal charges against the FBI agent who shot her. Now, in that case, the victims were armed. It's undisputed that they had rifles and that there was a hovering helicopter over the house and somebody was aiming the rifle at the helicopter. So there was definitely probable cause to believe that the force was necessary to stop the shooter from causing harm to another federal agent, to another person. Those are the standards. Do you have to use excessive harm to stop an officer from harming someone else or another agent? So that's the question. And I think in that case, it was reasonable for the officer to fire his weapon. The district court originally dismissed the case under the Supremacy Clause because the general law of supremacy says that you can't have state laws interfering with or conflicting with federal laws. That's the basic tenet of the Supremacy Clause. But that doesn't mean that you can't sue someone under state law for violating the Constitution. The Supremacy Clause under this case assumes that immunity is not absolute, and it does presuppose that federal agents can be prosecuted for violating state law. And in that case, the FBI agent was prosecuted. I'm going to give everyone the site so they can look it up for themselves. The district court dismissed it. Ninth Circuit dismissed it. And then when they got the overall Ninth Circuit en banc review, where the entire Ninth Circuit looks at it, they reversed the dismissal and said, you need to look at these facts. You can't just assume that the Supremacy Clause will immunize him here because there are too many facts that we don't know. Why did he shoot? Where was she? Was it reasonable what he saw? Was his line of sight reasonable? Was the presence reasonable? All of those things were not answered. So the case is Idaho, like it sounds, Idaho versus Horiuchi. Horiuchi. Again, Horiuchi. It's a 2001 case, number 98-30149. You can find it anywhere on Google. You can go to find case law, etc. And ICE agents, if you're listening, read the analysis on that case so that you know what you are really up against, because Trump is lying to you. You do not have absolute immunity. In the Ruby Ridge case, he did not have absolute immunity. The case was later dismissed after a number of years went by, after the Ninth Circuit en banc panel decided that the Supremacy Clause would not block that case and that he did not have automatic immunity. The prosecutors several years later dropped the case for reasons that had nothing to do with the Supremacy Clause or immunity. The passage of time, I talk about the statute of limitations in my article. Witnesses lose their memories. People lose motivation. A new prosecutor comes in, has other focus. So there are other reasons that the cases get dropped. But in this case, the Ruby Ridge case, it was not because of supremacy. That is still good law. The case was vacated on other grounds from 2001. That's the most recent case that's analogous to the Ross and Renee Good case as I see it.
We're talking to former federal trial attorney Sabrina Haake, author, publisher of newsletters, The Haake Takes, Sabrina, HAAKE.substack.com. Sabrina, so what you're saying is that when Stephen Miller, the Reichsminister for Propaganda, day before yesterday, published this actually on social media, quote, reminder to all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. Anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. The Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice. He's lying.
He's absolutely lying, and I think it's intentional. There isn't any way that these Harvard-educated lawyers like J.D. Vance, Yale, and some of the people that are surrounding Trump don't understand what they're saying. There is no way. There's nobody who has absolute criminal immunity. Even the Supreme Court decision, which was dastardly, but when they found that Trump was criminally immune for acting within the scope of his duties, that also turns on the question, was what he is doing so inherently involved in his official duty that it would be an executive function? When Sotomayor wrote her dissent, she said, if you're going to give Trump criminal immunity, he could call up SEAL Team 6 and order his political rivals to be assassinated. Alito pushed back on that and said that isn't the outcome here. That's the wrong interpretation. And John Roberts also said, no, we're not saying anybody's above the law. So Sotomayor, I love her dissent, and I agree with a lot of what she's saying, but it's still an open question as to how far even Trump's immunity would go. And I think the pushback on that suggests that they know that would be absurd. Otherwise, you're saying that federal agents have the right to murder people with complete impunity. It's an absolutely ridiculous premise. It looks to me to be intentional. It looks to me like Miller is encouraging agents.
I think they're trying to whip up a confrontation that will produce something that will justify invoking the Insurrection Act, at which point they will be able to bring in the military and shoot at people and have a much higher level of immunity. What say you? We have about a minute into a hard break here.
Looks like that's been Trump's goal all along. The state of Minnesota has filed a lawsuit basically saying that he's trying to escalate violence. He's trying to escalate the agitation, and he's been gunning to bring in, to call up the Insurrection Act from the beginning. I mean, he's doing everything he can to escalate the violence. And it's a scary time. And we'll see what the state of Minnesota does. Walz called up the National Guard on standby, and I think that's the right thing to do. We are at a very perilous moment. And, while we're also declaring war in Iran and against NATO and Venezuela, he's doing this ridiculous stuff at home. It's absolute chaos. It's lawlessness. And I hope that Ross gets prosecuted very quickly for murder, because if he doesn't, Renee Good is going to be precedent for more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's already, yesterday a ICE agent threw a canister of tear gas into a car full of 6 children. They're all in the hospital right now. I mean, they could have died. The
sooner they prosecute, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Sabrina Haake, check out our newsletter over on Substack, The Haake Take, Sabrina, HAAKE.substack.com. You can easily find it. It's absolutely brilliant. It's free. You need to subscribe. Sabrina, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thanks for being in this fight, Tom.
My pleasure. Good talking to you as always.
Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour, back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. And welcome back, Gregory in Ventura, California. Hey, Gregory, what's on your mind today?
Hey, hi, Tom. Been a while. Well, are you familiar with the history of the U.S. Virgin Islands?
Not particularly. I've been there a couple times, but I've never done a deep dive.
Yeah, I had never been there. Well, as I recall, I'll be quick here. When I was studying some history back at Berkeley, at Cal, in 1917. What are now the U.S. Virgin Islands were the Danish West Indies. We purchased them for $25 million in gold. And it was because we wanted protection. We thought Hitler might try to, come on down and maybe, approach us or this hemisphere with, right. And in that, as I recall, I haven't been able to find it or look it up yet, but in that deal, that treaty, there's a paragraph or a caveat in that 1917 treaty, it was under Wilson, where Greenland, we purchased from Greenland, turns into the U.S. Virgin Islands, but we are not allowed, it said, to go after Greenland because it has sovereignty, and it's in the future as part of that agreement. And no one has mentioned this. So with Trump's shenanigans here, what he's trying to do, he might be violating that statute in that 1917.
Well, that was 1917. In
agreement.
1951, I think it was, or at least in the early 1950s, we signed a completely separate treaty with Greenland and with Denmark, basically a mutual defense treaty. So I'm guessing that supersedes it?
I'm not sure. That's what I was thinking. I know about the 51 deal, but I don't know. See, that's one thing, military bases, and we can bring as many troops in as we like, whatever.
Right.
But does that treaty supersede the 1917 treaty? I don't know, and I'm not quite sure how to check it out. But I just thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll have to look into it. Gregory, thank you. I'm telling you, we got the smartest people in the world listening to this program. Thank you, Gregory. Ziggy in Oneonta, New York. Hey, Ziggy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. You were talking earlier about the banks receiving money from the Fed. And the reason is the Fed has lost control of the money supply. And I'll explain why. You go back a century ago, local banks used to issue their own currency. And when the Federal Reserve was implemented, the banks had to stop doing that, and the Federal Reserve would then throttle the currency system so to help manage the economy.
Right.
Now,
and maintain the value of the dollar, yeah.
That's right. Now, fast forward to today, we have billionaires owning crypto mines, creating all sorts of money and putting it into the system, and there's no way the Federal Reserve can control that. And all they can do at this point is be reactionary.
So you're of the opinion that crypto is destabilizing the system to the point that the Fed has to pour $500 billion into a handful of New York banks?
Yes.
How?
Well, first of all, a lot of the bonds being purchased right now are being purchased through cryptocurrency. Actually, it's not the currency. They're using dollars, but it's the cryptocurrencies that's being used to do it. And it's coming into the system that way. We've got basically a lot of fake money out there.
Yeah. Welcome to the Dutch tulip bulbs. Ziggy, thank you. That's great food for thought. I need to do some research on this. Thank you. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. And this is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
There's a boy on the border, crying in the cold. A mother holds her daughter, her hands tired and old. The promise of a nation carved deep in stone feels like it's cracking, like we're losing our home. The soul of America is breaking apart. We're losing the thread that once tied every heart. But the light's not gone, it still burns bright. If we stand together, we can make it right.
25 minutes past the hour. So two Republicans wimped out yesterday. Josh Hawley, the guy who, go, January 6th, go you guys, go beat up those cops. And then as soon as they start chasing him, he's running like a rabbit. Well, he ran like a rabbit this week. And then Todd Young of Indiana, who Donald Trump called out in a press conference. And Todd Young is apparently quaking in his boots. So as a result of this, the only three Republicans who voted with the Democrats to prevent Trump from using our military boots on the ground in Venezuela were Susan Collins, Rand Paul, and Lisa Murkowski. Susan Collins, of course, is freaked out. She's looking at a good possibility of losing her seat this November. I don't know the electoral status of Rand Paul or Lisa Murkowski, but both of them have, taken on Trump enough times that this is not surprising. But, it's a sad thing. I mean, the Article 1 of the Constitution explicitly says, and this was after a long debate in July of 1787 in Philadelphia, a long debate about whether only Congress should have the power to declare war, or whether a president should have that king-like power to say, I'm going to lead my nation to war, I've decided. And what they concluded is that no, it's the only way that this can be done is if Congress approves it. And Congress just abdicated their responsibilities. An amazing geeky science for you on the other side of the break, and I'll pick up your call. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
How'd you like to reduce your risk of death by 30% with 5 minutes a day? I'll tell you about that right after this. Today we're reading from David Enrich's book, Dark Towers, Deutsche Bank, Donald Trump, and an Epic Trail of Destruction. This is from Chapter 10. It's titled The Mar-a-Lago Prize. In 1905, a German immigrant living in the Bronx set up a small barber shop on the ground floor of a newly constructed building at 60 Wall Street, in the heart of Manhattan's booming financial district. In an era before skyscrapers, the 25-story L-shaped tower was a landmark, its gargoyle-guarded roof visible from the nearby waterfront. The barbershop thrived, offering shaves and trims to a procession of bankers, stock exchange traders, lawyers, and office workers. Barber's name was Frederick Trump. The same year that he opened the shop, his wife gave birth to a boy named Fred. Many years passed, and the barbershop closed, and the old 60 Wall Street gave way in 1989 to a new 60 Wall Street, a 47-story tower topped with a distinctive pyramid roof. For a time, it was home to J.P. Morgan and Company. Then the bank left, and in 2005, Deutsche Bank started relocating its American staff, displaced ever since 9/11, to its new home at 60 Wall Street. And so Frederick Trump's grandson, born to Fred's wife in 1946, became an occasional visitor to the site of his grandfather's old barber shop. Deutsche's relationship with Donald Trump had only deepened since Mike Offit left. Justice Justin Kennedy, this is the son of Justice Anthony Kennedy, Justin Kennedy, now a managing director, had become a key point contact for Trump and helped chaperone large real estate deals for him through the bank. Kennedy's role was to find customers to buy portions of loans after Deutsche dispensed the money, a process that allowed Deutsche Bank to make larger loans than it otherwise could have. Kennedy sometimes sat with Trump in his luxury box at the U.S. Open tennis tournament or at Manhattan nightclubs, where Trump would park himself at a table in the corner facing outward, holding court like a mafia don. Now, with Kennedy's encouragement, Deutsche hurried along a Henry Villard-like path. In 2000, the bank had plunked down another $150 million to be used for the renovations of Trump's building at 40 Wall Street. The next year, Deutsche agreed to extend Trump a mortgage worth more than $900 million, at the time the largest ever on a single property, so he could buy the General Motors building on the southeastern corner of New York's Central Park. Trump already owned half of the 50-story building. He wanted the rest. And in 2002, Deutsche agreed to refinance about $70 million that he owed on some of his Atlantic City casinos. Those loans came out of Deutsche's commercial real estate division, which Kennedy was helping to run. Not everyone was enamored with Trump. Seth Waugh, W-A-U-G-H, one of Edson's many Merrill Lynch recruits and the head of Deutsche's American operations, learned around 2001 that the bank was planning to lend Trump about $500 million to use as he wished, basically an unrestricted cash infusion to stabilize the developer's flagging finances. Waugh had previously witnessed up close the carnage that Trump could inflict on imprudent financial institutions. At Merrill, Edison had assigned him the task of mopping up after Trump defaulted on nearly $700 million of bonds that Merrill had helped sell for his Taj Mahal casino in Atlantic City. Waugh was in no hurry to repeat the experience at Deutsche. He voiced strong objections to the proposed new loan to Trump, in which Trump would not have had to put up any hard assets as collateral, and the deal soon died. Yet Deutsche's broader Trump relationship rumbled on. In 2003, another arm of Deutsche, focused on helping companies raise money by selling stocks and bonds to investors, agreed to work with Trump. The point man on this part of the relationship was Richard Byrne, another Merrill veteran who had been involved in the Taj Mahal debacle. Byrne had helped sell the ill-fated Taj bonds to investors. Now Trump hired Byrne's group at Deutsche to issue bonds for his troubled Trump hotel and casino resorts. Byrne knew this would be an uphill battle. Not only had Trump defaulted in the past, but he also had recently been taunting investors that he might stop paying back other outstanding bonds. Waugh didn't warn Byrne about the recently rejected $500 million loan, and so Byrne organized a roadshow for Trump to meet with and try to win over big institutional investors. He escorted Trump to meetings all over New York and Boston. At every stop, boardrooms and auditoriums were jammed with traders, fund managers, senior executives, and secretaries curious to see the Donald show, and Trump didn't disappoint. He rocked, he rolled, and he delivered wildly optimistic and inconsistent financial projections. Afterward, Trump called Byrne to ask how much money they'd raised. The answer, alas, was virtually zero. Byrne braced for an explosion as he explained to Trump that though he'd been treated like a celebrity, nobody trusted him with their money. Trump took the rejection in stride. "Let me talk to your salespeople," he requested. Byrne agreed, and Trump came to deliver a pep talk. "Fellas, I know this isn't the easiest thing you've all had to sell," he acknowledged, "but if you get this done, you'll all be my guests at Mar-a-Lago." Trump was always good at pushing an audience's buttons. A weekend with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Bragging rights that not even money could buy. And this new incentive did the trick. The salesman worked the phones, cast a wider net for more clients, and managed to sell an impressive $485 million of junk bonds, albeit at a high interest rate that reflected investors' fears that Trump might default. The book Dark Towers by David Enrich.
Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at HartmannReport.com, and just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast exclusively for the Hartmann Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at HartmannReport.com, absolutely free. It's titled Trump Lost, Vote Suppression Won at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
She wasn't loud, she wasn't armed, just a soul with a beating heart. But some men see a shadow and forget what mercy's for. A flash of fear, a practiced lie, another name the news will try to fold into the silence we've all been dying toward. It was a shot they never had to take, but they took it just the same. Left her name on the concrete, then buried it in blame. They said order, they said threat, but there's blood on that mistake. It was the shot they never had to take.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Data now. This is an amazing piece of medical news. Our geeky science for the day, and then I'll pick up your calls here. The headline: inactive people. That's people who just don't actively exercise can reduce their risk of death by 30% with 5 minutes of exercise a day. This is amazing. This was published in The Lancet, the journal of the British Medical Association. And it's a data analysis of 135,000 people. They've got great statistics because they have a national health care program there, so they know everything about everybody. It was published January 14th, yesterday, in The Lancet. And they estimate that the least active 20% of people, if the least active 20% of people added 5 minutes of moderate exercise a day, equivalent to a brisk walk, 5 minutes. Now, typically when people are walking fast, they're walking around 3 or 4 miles an hour, typically 3. So every 20 minutes you walk 1 mile. This isn't even a mile. This is like 3 city blocks, right? Equivalent to a brisk walk, 6% of premature deaths in that high-risk group could be prevented. If this small increase in daily physical activity were adopted by the entire population, the reduction in premature mortality would reach 10%. Here's a couple of other data points from this study. Reducing sitting time by just 30 minutes a day, with short walks of a couple of minutes every hour, can prevent between 3 and 7% of premature deaths. I have an Apple Watch, and every hour, if I don't get up, it taps my wrist and says, "Time to stand up."
And when I'm working upstairs in my office, when I'm, all afternoon I'm writing, and whenever my watch does that, I'll get up and I'll go downstairs and get a glass of water or say hi to Louise or whatever. For a very inactive person, increasing daily activity from 1 to 6 minutes reduces the risk of mortality by 30%. And for those already exercising for 9 minutes a day, if you add another 5 minutes, and again, we're talking about a brisk walk, so you're up to 14 minutes, your reduction is 18% in risk of death. Once 24 minutes of daily activity are reached, the risk reduction is no longer as pronounced. So that's the sweet spot, 24 minutes. That's a little over a mile. A second study that was published in eClinical Medicine, a journal in the Lancet group, also part of the British Medical Group, presents results that expand upon the previous study. This one looked at 60,000 people in the UK's biobank, and what they found was that these levels of activity that I just described dramatically reduce the probability of cancer, diabetes, or dementia, in addition to extending the lifespan. Now, this is a quote: "To gain a year of life, it is only necessary to sleep 5 more minutes a day, exercise 2 more minutes, and add half a serving of vegetables to your daily diet." The researchers also calculated what it would take to extend life expectancy without serious illness by 4 years. Want an extra 4 years? It would involve sleeping 24 minutes more per day, exercising for 4 minutes more, and adding about 100 grams, that's what, 3 ounces, of vegetables, a daily serving of whole grains, and 2 servings of fish a week to one's diet. Wow. All right, what's on your mind today? Diane in San Clemente, or St. Clemente? San Clemente, right?
Yes, hi, Tom.
Hey, Diane. What's up?
I want to thank you so much for all you do. And I'm going to do it in verse so I don't get scattered all over the place. I am a mother of a veteran, a wife of a veteran, 3 generations of veterans that served this country. Some died in the war. Wow. And so I want to speak for them. Mm-hmm. Fought for. This is what they didn't fight for, but this is what they got. Fought for the American dream. Now I live with the horrors I've seen. Left my legs over there. No one seems to care. My rehabilitation was a joke. The pension I get barely pays the rent. Just think if I hadn't went, I just might be president. You should see the care I get at the VA hospital. It takes me a day to see a doctor. Then they treat me like I'm a bother. No respect for those who answered their country's call while they went off to medical school to get their degrees. At least they owe us some courtesy. It'll be a cold day in a hot place before I go back there again. Last time I left with tears rolling down my face. Things I saw haunt me still. A friend of mine blowing up in a foxhole that I just moved from. Enemy fire shaved my pack hair off my back as I crawled through the mud, thinking surely I was a goner. My brother burned alive in a tank. Oh, don't worry, soldier, we'll take care of you. After all, you're defending the red, white, and blue. And don't forget, it's up to you to protect that American dream, too. Now I feel like a second-class citizen, a disabled American veteran, that the buck would give me a cup of coffee. Just think, if I hadn't went, I just might be president.
That's a hell of a poem, Diane. Have you published it?
Yes.
Good. That was brilliant. I don't normally recommend people try to read things on the air, but you did a brilliant job with that. Thank you. Thank you very much for the reality check. Ron in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, Ron, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? This is I'm a combat wounded Vietnam veteran and happen to be of Mexican descent. Mm-hmm. I got 2 points today. Number one is the hypocrisy of Thomas Massey of demanding a subpoena from the Clinton family and not demanding it from Jim Jordan, according to the
for the sexual abuse that he apparently covered up at the University of Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. How come they're not enforcing that one?
Yeah, or for that matter, a subpoena for Donald Trump. I mean, he knew more about it than anybody, and he was the guy who was in charge when Jeffrey Epstein was murdered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It sure is. But the second point I want to make is, I don't know if people are listening. I know they're listening, but I would appreciate if you would recite the Second Amendment so people can remember what is involved in that Second Amendment. And my last statement is, do you think possibly, according to the Second Amendment, that ICE is actually turning into Trump's militia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been saying that all along, that ICE is answerable only to Trump, legally, I suppose they're answerable to Congress, but I see no practical effect of that. Hitler started with a group of people around him that he called his protection squad. The word for protection squad in German is Schutzstaffel, which the SS. And they started as this protection squad, and they grew into this thing that ended up running the death camps and basically running the country. And in my opinion, that's Trump's idea for ICE.
Yeah, it is, definitely. I believe it. And also, I'm 80 years old, and I can remember a lot, And so, I mean, yes. And again, I want to thank you for informing everyone of stuff that they're not even aware of. And being Hispanic myself, I have a real cloud over my head whenever I drive out. I've got a truck, it's got a Purple Heart on it, it's got a VA thing on it, it's got veterans logos all over the place, and I still feel like I'm somebody being watched all the time. So I just want to thank you for giving me a time to speak, okay?
It's got to be tough being a Hispanic person in America right now, Ron. It's got to be real tough.
But I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for the call, and good luck. And thank you for serving your country. 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with you. And welcome back. Bob in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good.
And boy, what a group there. Your lasted, the poem from the lady, and then Ron, a fellow Mexican-American like myself, a best track. So I feel, So I wanted to give some updates, some news from here in North Carolina.
Okay.
Went to our precinct meeting on Tuesday, and three positive things really quick. So, yes, we're gearing up for a fight. We're gearing up for every dirty trick that possibly could be thrown, at us.
Because they're going to do it. They are going to do it. I mean, Trump, day before yesterday, said maybe we shouldn't even have an election in 2026, right?
You're exactly right. So these are old friends. I love Bernie's phrase, our friends. Yes, our friends across the hall. And I just have to grit our teeth, and I just think of Billy Jack, of Tom McLaughlin. I was like, whenever I see it, I just want to go berserk. But I'm working on being Gandhi, and I'm working on being Jesus. So anyway,
Good on you, Bob.
So we're working on that. So on the positive side, we're doing Bishop Barber and the Poor People's Campaign is doing a march from Wilson, North Carolina to Raleigh from February 11th to 14th. People were invited to join, even for a section. It is going up a huge rally, but in also getting people motivated for registering to vote. This is to take back the district that Don Davis was just got gerrymandered out. Mm-hmm. For people forget the term surgical precision for gerrymandering.
Yeah.
North Carolina, we are the poster child for that.
Yeah.
So there's that going on. So he calls it, this is going to be our Selma, because after the Selma march, things started to turn and get people really, really involved. And the last
So
one
what,
is,
if I can interrupt you, Bob, I must have missed a word. What is your Selma?
This will be this march from Wilson, North Carolina to Raleigh.
And when's that going to happen?
That's going to happen from February 11th to the 14th. The people go up on the repairers of the breach or the Poor People's Campaign.
Oh, yeah.
There's information.
Bishop Barber's stuff.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
We'll have to get him back on the program. He used to be a regular on our show, and for some reason he just kind of dropped off.
He's being pulled in a lot of directions.
Yeah, I'm sure he's very busy. Yeah.
And the last thing is monks, Buddhist monks walking from Texas are going through North Carolina, bringing a message of peace and loving kindness. So, and they're going to be along. I mean, you can see them. There's a thing, if you want to say, a walk for peace, monks, and they're going to Washington, D.C. They're doing it the old-fashioned way. The challenge is that it's going to be about 12 degrees next couple of days here in North Carolina. It's got, and one of the monks is walking barefoot. The other guys have socks. So we're hoping that we can get them. Oh, yeah. Well, you're from Michigan. I'm from Illinois. So we know cold.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go out in 18 degree weather with no socks on. I mean, and no shoes. I mean, that's really pushing.
I agree.
That's really pushing.
So, So anyway, that's what's going on here. I mean, I'm up. I tell you what, I learned a lot from your show. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And the songs, those when I'm down. I'm still recovering from COVID and that, but I think about the people who didn't make it, but also all the people who are going through all the stuff going on around the country. But the songs you and Louise come up with are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for your kind words. And thanks for serving your country so well to this day. Bob, appreciate the call. Thank you. It's 10 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute, and we'll continue picking up your calls. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
They said it was a rumor, said don't believe that talk. But now the doors are closing on the right to speak and walk. They call our anger danger, they call our signs a threat. Like loving this country means you never question it. They watch the posts you made back then, they track where you have been. Face on every camera, a file they keep you in. And if you say this isn't right, they write it down again. So fear can do the job before they ever can. If they can scare us silent, they don't need chains or guns. They're calling protest terrorism, calling dissented crime.
Welcome back, 52 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I just want to say for the previous caller, where Trump violated the Second Amendment was by federalizing National Guard troops in states without the permission of the governor.
Right.
That's what, and I haven't heard a single right winger talk about the violation of the Second Amendment, but that's what that's what John Paul Stevens talked about in his dissent in Heller versus D.C. when Antonin Scalia said that the first two clauses of the Second Amendment were no longer relevant. So the only question to answer was the right to individual ownership. So, but that as it may, it's a good segue to what I wanted to say. I really appreciated your guest talking about the supremacy clause and outlining what questions would come up with regard to this Agent Ross. But the supremacy clause in general doesn't mean that the federal government can just run roughshod over the states.
Right.
It essentially just means two things. It means that state laws have to conform and comply with standards of the Constitution, and secondly, that state laws, states may not enact laws that are reserved strictly for the federal government, such as interstate commerce and also immigration.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the other issues, once those questions that your guest outlined, when they don't wave through, remember, and you pointed this out, that the murder of Renee Nicole Good is a state law. That's a crime under
for
state
which
law,
there is
not
no
under
statute
federal.
of limitations, by the way. If I was Mr. Ross, I would be very concerned.
I really hope so. But yeah, the idea that Trump has that the federal government, the supremacy clause means the federal government can just run roughshod over the states or take precedent is not true. And the Supreme Court has ruled in many cases, some of which are called abstention cases, that they do not rule on issues because sometimes there are both federal and state jurisdictional questions. I would suggest that even the Sixth Amendment, which applies only to federal criminal law, says that the defendant has a right to a jury trial in the state and district wherein the crime should have been committed.
Right.
So that they can't just sweep it up and take it away. And if it turns out that those questions that your guest outlined about whether the officer acted within the scope of his duties, if those don't wave through, then, yeah, he's to face the state laws. And the Supreme Court has ruled that first state questions are settled first, and which may also deal with how the state deals with the federal questions that are involved with state law. And if there are any leftover questions, federal questions, that's when the federal courts step in and fix those. But they both there can be joint jurisdictions, and there have been. And the federal courts loathe to either override or undermine state courts because that's the foundation, really, of our justice, our criminal justice
Right,
system.
that's the core of federalism.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting, Paul. So the bottom line conclusion of what you're saying for the average person who didn't understand all the legalese, what is it that you're trying to assert?
I'm just saying that the idea that the Trump administration can do all this because they're enforcing immigration law, which is the sole jurisdiction of the federal government. True. Doesn't mean they get to come into the state and start violating state laws just because we're supremacists. We don't get to walk over you. We still have to abide by the state laws.
Right. I would say, this ICE agent who threw a tear gas canister into a guy's car with 6 children in it because he thought the guy was being disrespectful toward him, that's assault. In fact, I'd say that's assault with intent to kill. I mean, tear gas in an enclosed vehicle with children, it can kill children.
And they're very lucky if they weren't, especially the infant.
They're all in the hospital, all 6 of them still.
Oh, it's just.
It's like we're talking like permanent lung damage, and not to mention their eyes. And I mean, I've been tear gassed. It's awful stuff. It's a chemical. I'll stop there. But Paul, thank you for the call, and thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. If we want to hang on to it, if we want to have it, if we want it to work, we have to get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe. Keep your head up. And I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.